Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Lord of the People. I awaken a talent every week. Chapter 61. After Su Ming returned to the Lord's mansion, he dialed Ku Wanru's correspondence. After chatting for a while, he hung up. As for not being able to pick her up in person, it was entirely because of Huang San's strict opposition. Huang San has always been wise. Because of the rapid development of the territory, he guessed that once Su Ming left the territory would be attacked. This attack is not a direct invasion, but an attack such as a curse. With Su Ming here, at least he can bless all laws against invasion, and his territory will be safe and sound. Thanks to Huang San's opposition and Ku Wanru's understanding. Otherwise, as long as Su Ming leaves the territory today, the territory will become terrible. The curse has been swiped, and this must not make the territory negative. After contacting Ku Wanru, Su Ming began to study the magic ball. Magic sphere. It can store a large number of magic elements, supplement the state in battle, or directly borrow elements to use skills. Magic elements, release skills, isn't that what I lack? Su Ming was overjoyed. Before, he was still worried that the number of times he could release the curse of exchange blood would be limited by the magic value, but he didn't expect it to be solved in a blink of an eye. Really dozed off to send pillows. Look at the introduction above. This magic ball can store 5,000 magic points. Oh. No wonder the elf queen can release so many skills. It's just that most of the magic value in here has been used up. What should I do after the rest is used up? Also, how did the magic elements in it fit in? Maybe you can ask the two alchemists, they are more familiar with this kind of things than me. Thinking about it, Su Ming left the Lord's mansion again. He had just left on his forefoot when Bai Ling happily came to the lobby with two white velvet coats in his arms. Ah, what about the adults? Bai Ling's face was puzzled. I saw that the Lord communicated with people here just now, why did it disappear in a blink of an eye? Complaining verbally, he looked at the white velvet coat he was holding, and pouted in frustration. He murmured, "It's obviously made after a few nights, and I want to show it to adults as soon as possible." It's true, my lord, can't you just stay in the Lord's mansion when you have nothing to do with running around? Bai Ling carefully put down the coat, and then slowly started to appreciate it. At first glance, the two clothes are male and female. The male one is undoubtedly made for Su Ming, but the female one, I don't know what Bai Ling thinks. Perhaps, hidden evil intentions. Maybe. After appreciating for a while, Bai Ling felt better. And when I think about what happens next, I can't help but feel silly. He carefully folded his clothes, then sat in the lobby with his coat in his arms, intending to wait here for Su Ming to come back. Su Ming came to the forge and found Moshe. After explaining the reason, Moshe explained to him, "Sir, if you want to replenish the magic value in the magic ball, you have to rely on a magician who has changed careers, and it has to be a second-ranking career, that is, the level must reach 30, and successfully transferred to an intermediate-level magician." 5. 30-level magician. Su Ming's heart froze, it seems that he can't add anything for the time being. Seemingly seeing what Su Ming was thinking, Moshe added, "Sir, didn't you say that the territory has caught an elf? The elf people are naturally good at magic, why don't you try her? Maybe you don't have to wait until the third time." Grade 10. When Su Ming heard Moshe's words, his face was strange. Looking for Elf Queen Tia. Hee, she is really good, and she doesn't have to worry about the level, she is a senior magician. But this magic ball was snatched from her, so it's no wonder she agrees. Su Ming shook his head and put away the magic ball. Looking at Moshe, he asked, "I heard that you made a potion of forbidden magic yesterday, what is the material of this kind of thing?" There are more than 10 kinds of materials for refining the forbidden magic potion, among which the main medicine is the forbidden magic fruit, and the other materials are to help the forbidden magic fruit to improve the forbidden magic effect. Moshe didn't know why Su Ming suddenly asked about the forbidden magic potion. She only remembered that she made a bottle for Huang San yesterday. Could it be that butler Huang gave the potion to the adults? Well, very likely, Moshe thought to herself. Forbidden magic fruit, are there many such things on the island? Not much, many forbidden magic fruit have been eaten by wild beasts, and I bought this one from a goblin. Beasts still eat forbidden magic fruit. Isn't forbidden magic fruit harmful? Su Ming, who doesn't know the world's encyclopedia, was puzzled for a while. "Ah, who told you that forbidden magic fruit is harmful?" Moshe asked subconsciously. "Ah, this." Su Ming suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He couldn't say that he was ignorant and guessing randomly, right? The forbidden magic fruit, literally understood, has negative effects. So Su Ming subconsciously understood it to be harmful. Seeing Su Ming's expression, Moshe seemed to understand something. Suddenly covering his mouth, it turned out that he couldn't help laughing and laughed. Just laugh, just remember to answer after laughing. Anyway, since his face has been lost, Su Ming no longer cares, but secretly determined in his heart that he must make up for the common sense and encyclopedia of this world when he goes back. "My lord, I'm so sorry." Moshe bowed and apologized. The smile on her face subsided. She really knew Su Ming's temperament, otherwise she wouldn't laugh even if she bit her tongue now. "Sir, it's been a while since you first came to this world, and you don't know that the forbidden magic fruit is normal. Even many people who collect medicine all year round don't know what the forbidden magic fruit is, because this thing is basically an alchemist. Use." Moshe's words were meant to ease Su Ming's embarrassment, and at the same time, it could be regarded as her own substantial apology. The main effect of the forbidden magic fruit is to block the operation of the magic element, which is naturally harmful to professions such as magicians that use magic, but it is of great benefit to other professions that do not require magic, such as berserkers. Because the forbidden magic fruit can not only help them remove the magic power from their bodies, but also enhance their physique and greatly increase their strength attributes. Many of those savage beasts do not know magic, so the forbidden magic fruit is like a treasure of heaven and earth to them, and they will eat it directly after encountering it. And the forbidden magic fruit grows slowly. It takes a few years for a forbidden magic fruit tree to bear a forbidden magic fruit. During the growth process, the forbidden magic fruit is still easy. Moshe explained in great detail, talking about it for nearly half an hour. At the same time, he also introduced the process of refining forbidden magic potion to Su Ming. "Is there anything I can replace? Since the forbidden magic fruit is hard to find, then find its substitute." This is Su Ming's idea. "Yes, but those things are more difficult to find. I haven't seen them on Shueyu Island," Moshe said, and also introduced. For example, the magic grass core, the magic flower, and the melting magic fruit can be replaced, but the magic grass core only grows in the land of blood and evil, and the magic flower grows after the death of a living being. On the corpse, the magic fruit grows on the cliff wall. 5. Su Ming was ashamed again. The growth conditions of these things, Shueyu Island, are not satisfied. "Sir, do you still need the forbidden magic potion?" After seeing Su Ming asking for a long time, Moshe finally understood. How could a lord care about these things if it wasn't necessary? Su Ming nodded. "Well, don't you also know that elf? The elf is very powerful. For some reason, she can't be touched now, so she needs to be controlled with a magical potion to prevent her from destroying the territory." "Well, then, sir, you may try other methods." "Oh, do you have a solution? Have some ideas? Tell me." "It is to arrange the magic forbidden formation in the room where the elves live, and the effect is similar to the magic forbidden fruit." "Does anyone in the territory know the formation method?" Su Ming was puzzled. He didn't remember recruiting a magician. Moshe blushed, raised a finger and pointed at herself. "You still know the formation method?" Su Ming was a little surprised. A senior alchemist still understands the formation method. "I understand a little bit. That is, sometimes when refining things, you need some small arrays to assist, so learn some." "That's great. I'll leave this matter to you. Just say whatever materials you need." "Okay, sir, I'll go to prepare the materials, and I should be able to finish it by night." "Well, then I won't bother you, you're busy." After that, Su Ming left the forge. As soon as he went out, he received a communication request from Ku Wanru, and it turned out that he was going to return home. Su Ming's face brightened, and he didn't go back to the Lord's mansion. He went straight to the outside of the territory, planning to wait outside. In Mochizuki Valley, after cleaning up briefly, Ku Wanru hugged the big white rabbit, took Zaire, followed Shuchu to sit on Dapeng's back, and returned to Shueyu Island. On this trip, she brought two people, one is Zaire and the other is Feng Damu. Take Feng Damu to Shueyu Island. This is Feng Damu's initiative to ask for his life. Butler Lu needs to take care of the development of the territory, and it is inconvenient to follow. And Ku Wanru couldn't be too monotonous by her side, and Zaire alone would definitely not work. At this time, Feng Damu was the best candidate. He has extensive experience, strong strength, and is very loyal to Ku Wanru. The most important thing is that it is a personal essence, which has already been discussed with Huang San. A group of people quickly came to the sky above the Gore forest. To avoid trouble, they flew as high as they had come. But this time, it wasn't as easy as it used to be. Several elven generals who had been waiting for a long time saw Huang San and his party, and immediately flew up from the ground to intercept them. Seeing this, Shu Chu frowned, but he did not act immediately, and was waiting for Huang San's instructions. Su Ming had already said something before, asking him to obey Huang San on the road, and at the same time protect the person to be escorted. And the person to be escorted was obviously Ku Wanru. As for the relationship between Ku Wanru and Su Ming, Shu Chu was not interested to know, he didn't have the heart to gossip. Seeing the black elves, Huang San also frowned. There are 60 or 70 black elves in this group, and all of them are characters above level 25. The 4 elves that led the team even reached level 30 and completed the second career rank. If there is a conflict with these elves, although Shu Chu alone can win, the loss is definitely not small. And below, they also have siege level weapons, which also pose a certain threat to Shu Chu. At that time, Ku Wanru's safety cannot be guaranteed 100%. After thinking about it, Huang San decided to follow Su Ming's previous orders, and everything was stable. Everyone, we are from Shuiyu Island, and we have no ill intentions. If we pass by here, please make it easier for us. Huang San didn't mention the matter of the elf queen as soon as he opened his mouth. After all, he still didn't know the purpose of these elves. If it's just a simple check, that's even better. If there is malice, it can only be a threat. Hee. Hypocritical human race, your territory has captured our queen, and hurry up and return our queen. Backquote. An elf general was also violent and thoughtlessly revealed his intentions. He even put on a stance that he was going to start working. That's right, hurry up and return our queen. If our queen is injured a little bit, we will definitely destroy you. Dare to rob our queen, I think your territory is impatient. The other elf soldiers echoed angrily. In the news they got, the elf queen was captured by the forces of Shuiyu Island, so now they all look like they are filled with righteous indignation. But he forgot to think about how the strength of the group of people in front of him could quietly capture Tia, who was level 50. Even Shu Chu couldn't do it. When Huang San heard these elves' cries, not only did he not worry, but he became stronger. Since you already know that your queen is in our hands, you should also know the consequences of provoking us now. We can die here, but your queen will also die for your reckless actions. Exchange our life for your queen's life, are you sure you want to do this? In the end, it was Huang San who started to threaten. It was also at this moment that Shu Chu's whole body burst out. 30-odd grade gap. The elf soldiers were silent for a while, and their bodies involuntarily retreated 10 meters. But these 10 meters still did not give them a sense of security. They looked at Shu Chu as if they were looking at a monster, and their bodies were shaking like chaff. The 4 generals are better, but they are all gloomy. They all ignored Shu Chu just now, thinking that he was only about 10th level like the others and Yu Ying. Therefore, all the elves looked unconcerned at first, and even felt that they were transcendent existences in front of Huang San and others. But in the blink of an eye, a creature suddenly appeared overlooking them. This psychological gap was unbearable for the straight-teaching elves. The 4 generals also secretly compared at the same time, and found that in their ethnic group, only priests can be at the same level as the person in front of them. Moreover, the priest had previously explained that if the other party threatened the queen, he would let him leave. So the 4 generals looked at each other, nodded and exchanged, and at the same time cautiously retreated. Huang San had anticipated this for a long time and was not surprised, and directed Yu Ying to continue on his way. And the retreating elves, after seeing Huang San and others disappear, all began to rush towards Moon Valley. They did not know that there was a pale-haired elf watching in the dark, with a smile on his face. This elf is Fra. She came here to confirm Shu Chu's strength. A new force has a 60-level powerhouse in charge in just 7 days. Isn't this destiny? This is a great opportunity for my elves to rise. No, we have to make careful arrangements to ensure that the things predicted in the prophecy happen, even if we use inferior means at all costs. After a few words to himself, Fra disappeared again. Ku Wanru was stunned by the stance just now, and now she has regained her senses. She never imagined that Su Ming had only been in this world for a week, and he would have provoked a powerful enemy. And they still captured the king. It seems that Su Ming's life is not easy, and I don't know if my blessings can help him. The first thing Ku Wanru thought about was not worrying about being implicated, but thinking about how to help Su Ming deal with a powerful enemy. Perhaps subconsciously, she has long since regarded herself as an outsider. Always thinking about Su Ming. On the back of the other feathered eagle, Feng Damu also recovered from the shock. When he first came to the Silkworm tribe, he was the strongest. When he learned from Ku Wanru that other lords were coming to pick her up, he once suspected that Ku Wanru was deceived. After all, before the power has developed, which lord dares to go out of the territory? Don't you think you've lived too long? Leaving the territory means declaring one's existence to the surrounding forces, isn't that lighting a lamp in the dark? But what he didn't expect was that someone really came to pick up Ku Wanru. And each one is stronger than him. This also made him wonder what the development of the other party's territory looked like, and it became so powerful so quickly. So she took the initiative to invite Ying and followed Ku Wanru to Shuiyu Island. And just now, a group of arrogant and domineering, good-for-money advanced races with several times his strength, the elves appeared. This made him dumbfounded. He had already heard about the power of the elves. He was not optimistic about Huangsan and others being able to fight against the elves, so he began to help think about the way out. At the same time, I also intend to try my network of contacts accumulated over the decades, so that I may have the opportunity to retreat. But in the blink of an eye, before he could come up with a countermeasure, he was stunned again. That group of menacing elves actually retreated in the end. In my heart, I became more and more curious about how sacred this Shuiyu Island was, and the Bureau had such great ability. But because of his identity, he didn't ask much, and suppressed his curiosity for the time being. The journey after that was smooth. Soon, everyone saw an island. This is Shuiyu Island. It's beautiful. Zaire looked at the island under her feet and couldn't help but admire. There was also a gentle smile on Ku Wanru's face. Finally got to see him in this world. After meeting this time, we should not be separated in the future. Soon, the eagle fell to the ground. Ku Wanru saw Su Ming from a distance. Su Ming saw them long ago, and opened his hands towards Ku Wanru from a distance. Ku Wanru was stunned for a moment, then her face turned red, and she ran towards Su Ming subconsciously. But after a dozen steps, I suddenly felt something was wrong. Are you being too reckless? So it stopped slowly. Su Ming didn't have as many concerns as she did. Seeing her running, he stopped, and immediately stepped forward and hugged her into his arms. Because Su Ming was too hard, Ku Wanru couldn't help making a soft sound. A pair of small hands were a little overwhelmed at first, but in the end they seemed to muster up the courage to hug Su Ming. After a while, Su Ming asked, "Did you miss me?" Ku Wanru buried her head in Su Ming's arms and nodded heavily. "Then if you come this time, you won't be leaving. Stay here to be my lord's wife." It seemed that no matter what Su Ming said, Ku Wanru only knew how to nod. Su Ming didn't speak anymore, just hugged him quietly for a few minutes. Only then did he realize that Huangsan and the others were waiting, so he slowly let go of Ku Wanru. "Let's go back to the lord's mansion first." Saying that, Su Ming took Ku Wanru's hand and walked towards the territory. At the same time, he motioned others to follow. Su Ming has no heirs himself, and naturally doesn't like to pay attention to pomp. This time, he was the only one who came to pick up Ku Wanru. On the way, Su Ming walked and introduced the territory to Ku Wanru. Ku Wanru also listened very seriously. After all, she herself will live here in the future. Behind him, Feng Damu couldn't help but approach Huangsan. "Butler Huang, how long has your territory been developing?" Seeing that Ku Wanru and Su Ming's relationship is extraordinary, Feng Damu's mind is also released. Isn't it obvious, the future family? It's full of plans, it's just 7 days. 7 days. Even if he was mentally prepared, Feng Damu was still quite surprised. The construction of 10th level territories was completed in 7 days. What kind of fairy efficiency is this? Moreover, looking at the equipment of the soldiers, it was better than Feng Damu, who had been in the world for decades, which made him a big blow. Have you been busy for decades? It's not as good as other people's development for 7 days. But what made him even more shocked was still behind. He actually saw an acquaintance. To be precise, he saw a familiar goblin, the goblin patriarch, Natalu. Nataru also saw Feng Damu, saluted Su Ming and walked over. Butler Huang. Nataru bowed to Huang-san again. Although Su Ming had already said that he should not pay attention to these things, Natalu felt that it should be done. It's no good, but it's no bad either. And it can also prevent Su Ming and the others from picking up problems in the future. Seal Big Wood. Nataru. Long time no see. Yeah, I haven't seen you in a few years. Feng Damu is a traveling businessman. Although he is more of a deserter, he sometimes goes to other places. For example, this Shuiyu Island is one of them. He originally came to Shuiyu Island, in fact, to survey the mineral resources of Shuiyu. See if there are any rare ore veins, or mine and sell them. In the process, he met the indigenous inhabitants of Shuiyu, the goblin family. Then get to know Natalu. After several business cooperation, I gradually became familiar with it. But later, the business on Shuiyu Island could no longer be profitable, so it slowly stopped contacting. The essence of a businessman is to pursue interests, and such a choice is understandable. Naturally, Natalu can understand. How did you get here? When Nataru asked Feng Damu, he also looked at Huang-san and the others. Obviously, what he really wanted to ask was how he came with Huang-san and the others. Seeing this, Huang-san smiled and said, since the two of you know each other, let's go and catch up with each other first, and Chaj will call you when something happens. Make room for them. Feng Damu and Natalu Chichi bowed to Huang-san. When Feng Damu left, he did not forget to instruct Zaire, take care of your lord. After Xie nodded, he followed Nataru away. Feng Damu's departure was not entirely for the sake of reminiscing, because it was inconvenient for him to ask Huang-san about some things. After a while, Su Ming and others entered the gate of the territory. Walking on the street, you can see the busy figures of goblins everywhere. This is the goblin family, the workers I recruited and signed the contract. Su Ming introduced to Ku Wanru. Soon the two passed the store. Yu Xuanji walked out as if he had expected it, and as soon as he went out, he saw two people holding hands. This is a businessman in the territory, the proprietress of the store. Yu Xuanji has seen Lord and this young lady. Yu Xuanji is also a human being, so he knows that this Ku Wanru has an unusual relationship with Su Ming. In the future, I might have to deal with each other often, so I don't dare to neglect. Ku Wanru was a little stunned. Looking at Yu Xuanji, that delicate face, full of charm and maturity, and a devil-like figure, made Ku Wanru feel ashamed. I thought to myself, this person is a businessman in Su Ming's territory. Why is there such a big gap between my territory? The businessman in Ku Wanru's territory was just an ordinary middle-aged woman. Once compared, I can't help but have some unnecessary thoughts in my mind. This is a common problem for women. As long as you see a woman who is better than you appear next to your sweetheart, you can't help but feel suspicious. What's wrong? Su Ming saw Yu Xuanji talking to Ku Wanru, but Ku Wanru seemed to have lost her mind, staring at Yu Xuanji and looking up and down. Seeing this, Su Ming secretly said, it seems that this soft girl is not stupid, she knows how to take precautions, but is it really okay for you to take precautions against me like this? Ku Wanru heard Su Ming's voice and turned to look at him again. Still didn't mean to talk to Yu Xuanji. Perhaps, in the future, she will really become the Lord's wife, and she will consider whether to transfer Yu Xuanji from the farming tribe and replace it with a businessman stationed in the territory. Su Ming was seen very helpless, he really had nothing to do with Yu Xuanji. Shaking his head, he said, let's go then. Since Ku Wanru didn't want to talk about it, Su Ming didn't force it, and nodded towards Yu Xuanji as a greeting. Then leave with Ku Wanru. Su Ming, that man is so beautiful. Ku Wanru turned her head to look at Yu Xuanji again, and suddenly said, ha. Su Ming subconsciously agreed with Ku Wanru's words, but quickly reacted. Cough, I'm not familiar with her, and I haven't read it carefully, maybe she's beautiful. Seeing Ku Wanru's eyes gradually turning into resentment, Su Ming also had a headache. I heard that this world does not prohibit men from having 3 wives and 4 concubines. Do you have the same idea? After being silent for a while, Ku Wanru suddenly asked again. How can that be? Su Ming quickly denied it. Of course, whether it is true or false in his heart, only he himself knows. After all, a famous person once said, opening a harem is every man's dream. Ku Wanru stared at Su Ming's eyes, and Su Ming tilted her head slightly with some guilty conscience. Alas, after a long time, Ku Wan sighed softly, then took the initiative to come forward and hug Su Ming's arm. The sadness on his face disappeared, replaced by a bright smile. I thought to myself, forget it, why bother with so much? Su Ming is the seal of an SSS rank lord, and his future achievements are destined to be no trivial matter, so he cannot be restrained too much. And in the future, maybe he will have to marry other forces through his identity. If he doesn't accept it now, he can only think about it and get more angry in the future. It's better to be generous and take the position of the main palace, at least now he belongs to me alone. And as long as I perform well, it's not impossible to tie Su Ming's heart to myself in the future. It has to be said that Ku Wanru's mind is very transparent and knows which is more important. If she strongly opposes Su Ming now, although she can get Su Ming's promise, in the future, there is no guarantee that Su Ming will not change her mind. Moreover, being stronger than him in front of a man. This is not Ku Wanru's style. Su Ming was also relieved. He was really afraid that Ku Wanru would think wildly. The main reason is that he really has nothing to do with Yu Xuanji. He doesn't know whether Yu Xuanji has a boyfriend or is married. So how can it be related? Soon the two came to the Lord's mansion. The 10th level Lord's mansion is quite gorgeous. Ku Wanru was stunned for a moment. Wow, is this what the 10th level Lord's mansion looks like? It's so beautiful. Zaire also appeared from behind at this time. Ku Wanru also nodded in agreement. For a while, Su Ming was quite proud. Although he didn't make any effort to collect resources, this mascot is still qualified. Gives so many buff bonuses. That's a bit of a credit. Bring Ku Wanru to the lobby. Bai Ling, who had been sitting and waiting in the lobby, was dozing off and woke up instantly when she heard the movement. After seeing Su Ming, he immediately got up and ran forward with his coat in his arms. You can stop in the next second. Because she saw Ku Wanru beside Su Ming, and Ku Wanru was holding Su Ming's arm. Who is this? What's the deal with the Lord? Why is she here? Bai Ling's eyes widened, and his mind was full of thoughts. Zaire emerged from behind and looked at Bai Ling. Seeing the coat in Bai Ling's hand, his eyes suddenly lit up. Hey, this dress is so beautiful, is it for our Lord? Bai Ling had 2 pieces of clothes in his hands, and at a glance, he knew that they were men's and women's suits. In Zaire's opinion, the male must be for Su Ming, and the female must be for Ku Wanru. After all, Su Ming hadn't brought out a gift to Ku Wanru from just now. When Ku Wanru heard Zaire's voice, she was overjoyed and turned to look at Su Ming, her eyes full of love. Su Ming was also stunned. He had no idea where the coat came from. He also looked at Bai Ling curiously. When Bai Ling heard Zaire's voice, her heart suddenly trembled. This dress was prepared for herself, and she just wanted to show it to Su Ming together. So I immediately wanted to deny it. But when her gaze shifted to Ku Wanru's arm holding Su Ming again, she suddenly hesitated again. This person should be the adult's lover, right? What would she think if I said in front of her that the clothes were made for me? Do you think that you are being disrespectful? Will she let me leave the adults in the future? A storm rolled up in Bai Ling's mind. Finally, he looked at Su Ming, as if he wanted to find an answer in his eyes. But at this time, Su Ming's curious eyes turned into doubts and questions in her eyes. As if to say, why not answer? Feeling aggrieved in my heart, my nose is sore, and my eyes are suddenly red. Finally, he nodded to a few people, forced a smile on his face, and said, yes, this is specially prepared by the adults, and I hope the young lady likes it. Then he handed the coat to Su Ming, and quickly said, "Sir, I'm a little uncomfortable, so I'll go down first." Then, without waiting for Su Ming's response, he just ran away. Because when he was in the wrong body with Su Ming, two pea-sized eyeballs had fallen out of desperation. Seeing this, Huang San and Shu Chu, who came in from the outside, looked puzzled. Bai Ling didn't give them a second look and left directly. Su Ming looked at the coat in his hand, and then thought of Bai Ling's weirdness, and suddenly frowned. Ku Wanru and Zaire also looked puzzled. Su Ming could see at a glance that the coat was made of white tiger skin. I finally understood why Bai Ling had been sleeping late these days, thinking that he was staying up late to make clothes. Moreover, he never mentioned Ku Wanru's coming in front of Bai Ling, and naturally he would not let her prepare gifts or anything. She didn't know that Ku Wanru would come. So this women's clothing should be made by Bai Ling for herself. Women's clothing and men's clothing styles are the same, and its meaning is self-evident. Su Ming is not an ignorant person either, so he naturally knows Bai Ling's affection for him. But he just wanted to treat Bai Ling as his family, because Bai Ling's identity was his maid from the beginning, and he was destined to live together. And recently, all his heart was filled with Ku Wanru, and he couldn't give Bai Ling a response at all. He also thought that after a long time in the future, Bai Ling would be able to slowly change this kind of affection and treat him like a family. But now it seems that Su Ming thinks too simply. When Ku Wanru saw Bai Ling leaving, she also sensed something was wrong. The woman's terrifying sixth sense opened, and she immediately thought of Su Ming. What is the relationship between this woman and Su Ming? Why is she in the Lord's mansion? Su Ming turned to look at Ku Wanru, and seemed to see her doubts. She's the same as Zaire. Oh, Ku Wanru responded softly, then turned her head to look outside the door. Like Zaire, she was the maid who served the Lord's daily life. However, she still felt a little weird. Bai Ling's performance just now always gave her a strange feeling, but she couldn't say it for a while. Of course, she didn't notice a sense of crisis in Bai Ling. Although Bai Ling is also very beautiful, she is not bad herself, and she still has this confidence. Zaire was also a little confused. She really thought this dress was beautiful. I saw that Ku Wanru and Su Ming were a pair, so when I found out that the coats were also a pair, I subconsciously said it. She doesn't know anything, she just likes to admire. But because of this, he actually scared Bai Ling away. Xie beat drums in her heart. Is this offending someone? Are you going to apologize? Su Ming was a little upset, but didn't show it. Handing the coat to Ku Wanru. Take it, after a while, go to choose the room by yourself, and then put it in the room. Since the misunderstanding has already occurred, it can only make it wrong. If you don't give Ku Wanru the coat now, doesn't it admit that Bai Ling has other thoughts on making this coat? And it will also make Ku Wanru feel cold, because Su Ming really hasn't given her a gift yet. Ku Wanru put a smile on her face and put the coat into the space backpack. Sit down and take a rest. Su Ming greeted Ku Wanru to sit down, then turned to look at Huang San. Old Huang, go and prepare something to eat. It's still a while before dinner time. I'm afraid that Ku Wanru will be hungry, so I get some snacks to pad her stomach first. Yes, my lord, I'll go down and make arrangements. Okay. Saying that, Huang San stepped back. Shu Chu was standing directly outside the lobby, guarding the door and not coming in. How's it going these days? Is there anything new? Su Ming poured Ku Wanru a glass of water and started chatting. The atmosphere was very monotonous and natural, and gradually began to talk and laugh. Zaire couldn't take it easy, and after listening to the two of them for a while, she ran to look around. This lord's mansion is level 10, which is a full 6 levels higher than that of the Silkworm tribe. Therefore, Zaire is very curious about everything, and she is not stingy with her praise. He even ran to the door to observe Shu Chu, and was amazed again. Unfortunately, Shu Chu was like a stone sculpture, unresponsive. Gore Forest. The 12 elders gathered thousands of elves and all came to the periphery of the forest opposite Shuiyu Island. Sophie also brought in hundreds of siege equipment, including longbows, giant crossbows, magic artillery, and frost catapults. Lined up, full of intimidation. And these things can avoid territorial restrictions, and can cause damage to the enemy at a distance. The current Shuiyu Island power is only 1 kilometer of water outside of Shuiyu Island. As long as it is thousands of meters away and can hit Shueyu Island, it can pose a threat to Shueyu Island. All Fra wanted was a threat. Fra appeared in front of the elves. See the priest. Sophie took the lead in the salute. Well, you all did a great job. Fra nodded to the 12 elders and Sophie. Next, it's time to wait. I don't know what time the priest is waiting for. Sophie asked. Fra shook her head. She didn't know whether she didn't want to say it, or she didn't even know what to wait for. Just said, today, your mission is to deter Shueyu Island, so that they don't dare to act rashly, and ensure Tia's safety before negotiation. Then why do we have to spend so much trouble? Wouldn't it be enough to just let high-level warriors go to Shueyu Island to show their strength? Sophie felt very strange, and it seemed that so many elves would not be needed to be intimidated. In order to gather these elves, the elders did not run away. Some of these elves are still life occupations and are not suitable for combat. She really wondered why Fra would do this, and what was the purpose of it. And it is destined to not fight. This is not a waste of effort. Don't worry, it will be useful, at least it will allow some people to see the strength of our black elves, which will also make him more tempted. Flora said meaningfully. Sophie was taken aback. What does this mean? Let others see the strength. Make people tempted. How do you feel that you want to sell the elves? If it weren't for Fra's being an old priest, Sophie might have questioned like that. But now she dare not, because she also needs to obey the priest's orders. Outside the Moon Valley, 4 elf generals came here. General Dongsho, what should we do? It seems that no one is going out in this territory. An elf general with a strand of blue hair on his head looked at the other general with a strand of red hair and asked. There are 4 guards in the south, and northwest, with the characteristics of red, blue, purple and green. Taking the red hair as an example, the name can be called Dongsho or Red General. Dongsho also frowned. How could he have never imagined that a new force that was developing would not be able to leave the valley? Does this feel dangerous outside the valley? Aren't they all small things? What's the danger? In the entire Gear Great Forest, the most dangerous is the Black Elves. So accustomed to the domineering East Show, naturally do not understand the development of weak forces. Beisho also asked. They can't come out, but we can't go in. How can they find out that they have been surrounded by us? Dongsho still didn't answer because he didn't know what to do. At this time, Shisho suddenly said indifferently, "Are you stupid? The priest just asked us to surround us, and he didn't let us do other things. If they don't come out, they won't come out, already." Yes, the priest has no other requirements. Nansho slapped his thigh and looked suddenly enlightened. Why didn't I think of that? Beisho fell into self-doubt. Dongsho frowned and looked at Shisho with a bad expression. Suddenly, a sentence came. What? You still want to challenge my status? Westguard. Shisho wanted to curse in his heart. Isn't this a casual remark? Why did you jump to the challenge position? Just because you are smarter than you. In the past, Shisho did dissatisfied with Dongsho, but after Dongsho got a few pieces of equipment, he no longer had any thoughts of dissatisfaction. Because it can't be beat. Therefore, in the face of Dongsho's words, Shisho even said that he did not dare. In this way, it was a general who started to stay outside Mochizuki Valley collectively stupidly. Originally, Fula asked them to come to Mochizuki Valley so that the forces of Mochizuki Valley would find out that they were besieged, and then asked Su Ming for help. In this way, Su Ming would naturally take the first step to contact their elves. The elves will also be able to control a little initiative, and can obtain more benefits for Tia. This is also an opportunity that Fra wants to wait. But who would have thought that even if the generals are stupid, they are still collectively stupid? It's no wonder that Fra pinned his hopes of racial promotion on others. It's time for dinner soon. When the dishes were brought to the table and ready to eat, they suddenly found that Bai Ling didn't come. What about the white spirit? Su Ming looked at Huang San and asked. Huang San shook his head. I was still cooking just now, I should go back to my room now. She said she has no appetite. Su Ming frowned and his face sank. This also makes me petty. I don't even eat. Su Ming looked around and saw that Ku Wanru, Zaire, Feng Damu, Shu Chu, and Huang San were all looking at him and seemed to be waiting for him to speak. Otherwise, no one will move the chopsticks. Then don't care, eat first. Su Ming adjusted his mood and greeted with a smile. Feng Damu was the most embarrassed at the scene, because he had no idea what was going on, and he was only called when he was about to eat. Shu Chu was the most heartless, and when he heard Su Ming said that he could start eating, he immediately picked up the small wooden bowl and started to eat. Zaire, who was watching on the side, had a big appetite. I learned a few times, and then, choked. Su Ming left halfway through his meal. You eat, leave me alone, I'll go out and come back soon. Ku Wanru nodded gently. Huang San understands what Su Ming is going to do. 827. In farming tribes, skipping meals is considered a taboo. A tribe determined to farm, you don't eat. So how do you farm? Then what are you doing farming? This rule is very strange, but no one objected. As soon as he went out, Su Ming immediately changed his face and walked towards Bai Ling's room angrily. He walked to the door and patted the door. There was no movement in the room. Su Ming pushed the door open directly. Bai Ling's door didn't knock back, and he didn't know if he was waiting for something on purpose. Su Ming walked into the room with anger, but when he saw Bai Ling's red and swollen eye sockets, his anger disappeared like a punctured balloon. My lord, Bai Ling knew just now that someone was coming in, so he kept looking up at the door. Seeing it was Su Ming, he greeted him with a choked voice. Su Ming is also speechless. How can he be angry like this? But if you want to make Su Ming put on a good face, that's not enough. Walking to Bai Ling's side, he asked in a flat tone, is that dress made for you? 5. Bai Ling nodded in response without hesitation. How long did it take? 3 nights. Su Ming touched his forehead and was really guessed. Then why don't you just give it to me? What are you going to do with it in the lobby? To show off. I don't know if anyone will come, it's still yours. Bai Ling couldn't say the word, love. Bai Ling also felt aggrieved in this matter. I worked hard to make clothes that I had been making for a few nights, I wanted to give it to Su Ming, and then be praised. For this reason, I waited in the lobby for a long time, but I was sent away in a blink of an eye. Although it was given by himself, it was also forced by the situation. Alas, Su Ming also sighed. He also has a responsibility for this matter. He didn't communicate with Bai Ling first, and Bai Ling didn't even know that someone was coming. But can't blame him for this. He didn't know that Bai Ling made clothes beforehand. Who can blame? Only fate is too coincidental. Looking at Bai Ling's appearance, Su Ming thought for a while, and took out a dagger from the space backpack. This is a horn dagger, it is the first weapon and equipment I have come to this world, and now I can't use it, I will give it to you. Since Bai Ling was wronged, it is natural to give her some compensation. The horn dagger is just a piece of low-level silver equipment, which was dropped from the first killing of a boulder bull. The next time, Chen Dabbing entered the dungeon space and killed a boulder bull, but coincidentally, he didn't drop the horn dagger that time. Su Ming went to check and found out that the explosion rate of the horn dagger is 0.09%. After all, it is the only silver-level equipment on the boulder bull. It is normal to have this explosion rate. But after passing Su Ming's talent bonus, 90% of the explosion rate has not dropped, so it can only be said that Su Ming has missed it. In the future, there may be no more boulder bulls, horn daggers, or this one. The only one, and it is Su Ming's first weapon and equipment, so there is still a little commemorative significance. Bai Ling took the dagger with joy, and the unhappiness on his face instantly vanished. Thank you, sir, I will keep it well. Bai Ling's current level is also 10th, and it is not very useful to take a horn dagger. Naturally, it can only be a collection. As you please, as long as you are happy. Su Ming waved his hand, and then instructed, since you don't want to eat now, then take a rest, get up after a while and go get it by yourself. Well, I see. Bai Ling nodded vigorously, a warm feeling in his heart. After explaining, Su Ming turned around and was about to leave. At this moment, Bai Ling suddenly stopped Su Ming. My lord, is there anything else? Bai Ling looked at Su Ming and felt a little confused, but when she thought about how Ku Wanru was holding Su Ming's arm just now, she finally summoned up her courage. Sir, can you agree to Bai Ling's request? What's the request? Tell me about it. That is, sir, can you stop driving Bai Ling away in the future? No matter what happens, sir, you can't drive Bai Ling away. After saying this, Bai Ling seemed to have exhausted all his strength, and finally asked weakly, "Is it okay?" She is still worried that Ku Wanru will drive her away. After all, she has a little bit of juju in her heart, which is different from other maids. But if Ku Wanru wanted to chase her away, she naturally had to get Su Ming's consent, so she wanted to take this opportunity to seek a Taoist amulet. Su Ming was suddenly amused. "You are my maid, the first maid I came to this world, and probably the only one. What am I doing to drive you away when I have nothing to do?" 5. When he first saw Bai Ling's appearance, Su Ming thought it was an excessive request, but he didn't expect it to be just this. "Then your lord, did you agree?" "Well, I promise." Bai Ling was overjoyed. Su Ming shook his head, then exited the room. "Went to wash my hands and went back to the dining room, as if nothing had happened." After eating, Su Ming took Ku Wanru to find Da Ben, and then let Da Ben take him to visit Shuiyu Island. Shu Chu and Zaire naturally followed. Huang San went to continue busy with development matters. After all, only the Lord's mansion has been upgraded to the 10th level, and other buildings have not been upgraded. And Su Ming did not recruit because the building was not upgraded. Huang San had reminded him before that every time the building was upgraded to 10 levels, the number of recruits would change. Levels 1 to 9 can only recruit 10 people, while level 10 can recruit 100 people. The difference is not that big in general. So Su Ming is also willing to wait. Feng Damu wanted to follow Huang Sanzu's management, so naturally he did not follow Ku Wanru. Time passed quickly, and gradually, the twilight became richer. Su Ming sat with Ku Wanru on a rock on the beach. Shu Chu was standing not far away, and Zaire followed Da Ben to play in the water on the other side. While the two were enjoying the scenery quietly, they suddenly saw the coastline in front of them moving towards them. "Lord," Shu Chu came over. He had excellent eyesight and could see more clearly than Su Ming and the others. Su Ming raised his hand and said, "It's okay, it's from the Gear Forest, it's only the elves, their queen is in my hands, and they don't dare to act rashly. However, in order to prevent other elves from sneaking in, you go to the Lord's mansion to guard yourself, and any suspicious characters who approach will be taken directly. The last general is ordered." Shu Chu responded with a sound, then turned around and left. Su Ming, will this be too much? Ku Wanru looked at the dark crowd approaching from the opposite side, and felt a little worried in her heart. "What's this? As long as I'm on this island, I can be safe." Su Ming said jokingly, "If they really come to attack, that's right, I can show off in front of you." "Show off? Show off what?" "Of course to show it off." Su Ming raised the red mark on his hand. Ku Wanru understood. It seems that Su Ming's talent can not only help development, but also protect. In this way, she can rest assured that the SSS level Lord's Seal can still give her enough confidence. The elves on the opposite side began to drive towards Shuiyu Island under the leadership of Sophie. They had been waiting for a day, but they still hadn't waited for the moment Fra said. Seeing that it was getting dark, she was worried that Tia would be abused on Shuiyu Island. So after asking Frau for his order, he began to approach Shuiyu Island, in order to arouse the vigilance of the forces of Shuiyu Island and form a threat. Their posture is really scary, doesn't that scare Ku Wanru? However, Su Ming had nothing to fear and pinched their lifeline. At this time, Chen Dabbing hurried over from a distance. "My lord, the black elves are attacking, what should we do?" "No need to do anything, just guard the towers and turrets normally, they won't get too close." While Su Ming was talking, the black elves on the opposite side really stopped. The distance is exactly 1 kilometer outside of Shuiyu Island. "The scenery here has been defiled, let's go back." Su Ming turned to look at Ku Wan Judo. The two got up and left. Chen Dabbing was a little stunned, and said, "The lord, these black elves." "Wait, what are you going to do?" Su Ming waved his hand. Su Ming's worries are indeed right, there is a spirit sneaking in on Shuiyu Island. It was the priest Fra who sneaked in. Fra has a way of contacting Tia, but she has no plans to go. Instead, he wandered around the territory, and every time he saw a woman, he would follow and observe for a long time. First Yu Xuanji, then Irene, Moshe and others, none of them were spared. But in the end, she shook her head helplessly and left. He also said to himself, "No, no, who is the other person?" Fra wanted to find out the man in the prophecy so that he could make sure that the prophecy happened. But after some observation, nothing was found. Glancing at the Lord's mansion, I had the idea of going to find out, but I didn't dare to act rashly. Because she knew that there was someone at the same level as her. After hesitating for a while, he chose to give up. After all, it will be even more troublesome after being discovered. Just when she was about to leave, she suddenly saw Su Ming and Ku Wanru walking side by side. Seeing Ku Wanru for the first time, she was overjoyed, then frowned. The temperament is a bit similar, but it looks different, so this should not be the case. Frau shook her head again and sighed. Boy, I can enjoy the blessings of everyone for you, but there are enough troubles, you don't want you to disappoint me. Fra turned around and disappeared directly into the darkness. If nothing was discovered this time, then we can only wait for an open-minded search for tomorrow's negotiation. Su Ming sent Ku Wanru back to the Lord's mansion, and then brought Huang San to the recruiting center. Current building level, 11+1. Remaining recruitment times, 1. Refreshed once a week. Currently recruiting the highest occupation skill level of 27 as the master level, every 10 levels of the building, the highest recruiting occupation skill level +1. Recruitment probability. Normal, 70%. Elite, 20%. Master, 10%. Are you recruiting? Recruit. Ding. Recruitment is successful. Get Super Warrior 30, Master Mage 20, Master Archer 40, Master Assassin 5, Master Priest 5. One by one, 100 people all came out of the recruiting center. As expected, they have been successfully transferred. Among them, there is an additional priest occupation, which is considered to make up for the logistics of the war. And because of the talent bonus, they are all masters, and the super in the warriors is the same as the masters. However, they only have master level skills, but they do not have master level levels. All are level 12, but when they grow up later, the 30th and 50th level transfer will not be stuck. So their master class is a pass. Now that the recruitment has been completed, there is nothing left for Su Ming. Huang San took over and started arranging accommodation. Today, only the recruiting station has been upgraded to level 10, and the residential house is still 2 levels away. The warehouse and the forge have not been upgraded for the time being. The recruited soldiers have not made arrangements for the time being, and plan to wait until tomorrow when others are called up before assigning positions. There were only 10 soldiers before, so of course you can do whatever you want. But now they can't. The number of soldiers has risen to 110. If they don't assign positions, it will be difficult to call them in the future. And there are a lot of brutes that are also starting to be regularized. We also have to deal with the elves who are guarding outside. Tomorrow is destined to be a busy day. Thinking of the elves, naturally also thinks of Tia, who is still locked up. Back at the Lord's mansion, Su Ming intends to take a look at Tia's situation and try it out by the way. Shu Chu was standing outside Guan Tia's room. As soon as Su Ming entered the door, he felt a strange smell coming to his face. I was surprised for a while. Did Bai Ling specially set up a room for Tia? No, Bai Ling can't be so kind, she is very vengeful. Su Ming couldn't figure it out. It was only when he approached the head of the bed that he understood. At this time, Tia was lying lazily on the bed, holding a small book in her hand and reading with relish. Neither noticed Su Ming's arrival. Su Ming also saw a lot of strange fragrances on the cabinet by the bed, which should have been brought by Tia. Tia also has room for a backpack, but Su Ming forgot to search it before. But thinking about it, it's not that easy to search. After all, Tia is still useful now, she needs to use her to contain the black elves, it is impossible to abandon it directly, so there is no way to force it too much. But what if by some means? Maybe she still has a magic ball. Cough cough. Su Ming coughed and signaled his existence. Unexpectedly, Tia didn't look back and said, "There are throat remedies on the cabinet. If you want to believe me, take it yourself." It seems that Su Ming has already been discovered, but he just pretended not to see it. Of course Su Ming doesn't need any throat remedies. I didn't expect you to live so well. Su Ming moved a chair and sat down. Tia closed the book and sat up on her side. Show off your body curves, and show all kinds of styles with a frown and a smile. Now she seems to have no sense of being imprisoned at all, as naturally as in her own home. What, is it not enough for the Lord to shut me up, and he still wants to abuse me? Tia had a smile on her lips, with a teasing look on her face. Seeing Tia's appearance, Su Ming's face suddenly turned red. The elves are inherently bold in their clothes, and Tia is no exception. When sitting on the side, the skin showed a large amount of snow white. Although nothing substantive was revealed, but the temperament emanating from Tia's body and the fragrance in the room still caused Su Ming's blood to burst. But can you look away? No, wouldn't this weaken the momentum? I heard that you are the queen of the elves. It seems that your queen is not very good. After a day, no elves came to save you. Taking advantage of Tia's ignorance of the outside world, Su Ming sneered. This suppressed Tia's psychological boundaries. But with such a simple provocation, how could Tia be fooled? Oh, I don't know what they're doing, but don't you, my lord? Tia didn't believe what Su Ming said, so naturally she wouldn't have any negative thoughts. She is well aware of the Black Elves' support for her, and it is impossible for her to remain silent for a day. It is only possible that her actions are restricted because of herself. It was easy for Tia to think of this, and at the same time to retort. Are you really not worried about your own safety? Or do you think I really dare not kill you? Su Ming's eyes narrowed slightly, making his words more truthful. Your lord isn't that stupid, right? Although you have caught me now, if you want to deal with the Black Elves, that's not enough. The Black Elves are also 50-level forces that have developed for decades. Even if you have the protection of the spirit-binding formation, you can't guarantee that you will not be destroyed. So now you can only imprison me, but dare not kill me, am I right? Tia, intimately, analyzed the facts for Su Ming, and finally asked again. You really have nothing to fear, although I don't dare to kill you for the time being. But you are not afraid that I will imprison you forever. How long can you bear it? 1 year, 3 years, 10 years. At that time, I won't have the slightest concern anymore. After all, you are an intruder, and you have murdered me. It's reasonable for me to hold grudges for so long, right? It's all verbal confrontation. Su Ming naturally won't worry about anything, it's nonsense. And it does have some effect. Tia's face changed slightly, but soon recovered. No, how could you imprison me for so long? First, the Black Elves won't agree, and second, you don't dare. Are you sure you can find so many anti-magic potions? Or do you think this anti-magic circle is very useful? Once my strength is restored, it's not an adult. You can keep it if you want. The elves are proficient in magic, and although Tia only knows dark magic, she can still do things like space teleportation. Once she recovers her magic points, Su Ming really can't keep her here. Without her, Su Ming will no longer have the right to speak, then, he will be in danger. Su Ming's face sank, as if she was really hit by Tia's weakness. He sighed. This woman, it's better not to be so smart. A triumphant smile appeared on Tia's face. But the next second, the smile disappeared directly from her face. Su Ming raised his hand and clapped his hands. Shu Chu, who was standing outside the door, came in response. See your lord. Shu Chu's aura was undisguised, and Tia, who was directly pressed, trembled. Can you still be so confident now? Su Ming looked at Tia and asked, if I let him go to the Black Elves to clean up the Black Elves, how many Black Elves will suffer? You. Tia looked at Su Ming in horror. Hee, I don't have as many concerns as the Black Elves. On the contrary, they will become tied up because of you. When the time comes, do you think there will still be Black Elves to support you? And once you lose the value of the threat, guess what will I do with you? Su Ming had a smile on his face, but this smile made Tia feel sick. Tell me, what about me if you want? Tia's tone became cold, no longer the same as before. Hand over your space pack. This is Su Ming's impromptu idea, but he is also very interested in Tia's space backpack. What? Afraid that I might hide some means of escape? Tia's eyes filled with mockery. I'm curious, okay. It's all something girls use, what's there to be curious about? Stop talking nonsense, hurry up, pay or not pay. Su Ming was furious. If you talk to Tia like this, you can't talk about it in the daytime. Tia was taken aback and muttered in a low voice, just pay, what are you doing so fierce? Then hand over the space backpack directly. Su Ming took a look, a little disappointed, there was no magic ball. But if I think about it, if there is a magic ball, Tia directly uses the magic ball to cast magic and runs away. It seems that magic balls are not a rare thing. Su Ming thought to himself. Now that he has obtained the space backpack and discovered the strength of the Black Elves, Su Ming has nothing to remember. Just get up and leave. Hey, you won't let this man go to the elves, will you? Tia stopped Su Ming, and at the same time cast a worried look at Shu Chu. She could clearly feel Shu Chu's strength. If he really let him go to the Black Elves to sweep, it would be a disaster for the Black Elves. She was imprisoned because of her playfulness and mistakes, and she has no complaints about it. But she will never forgive herself if the race is killed because of her. Su Ming replied without looking back, "Look at your performance." Saying so, he left the room. Shu Chu also withdrew, and carefully closed the door. Tia sat on the bed and began to worry. Humph, don't you just want me to be imprisoned obediently, then imprison me, you can still imprison me for the rest of my life. In the end, Tia could only accept her fate. If Su Ming saw this scene, it would definitely be amazing. Charm, Gaolang and Xiaojiabiu, these three temperaments can appear in one person at the same time, and I have to feel the magic of the creator. At the same time, it also verifies the sentence, women are really magical creatures. After Su Ming came out from Tia, she wanted to see Ku Wanru. After all, on the first day Ku Wanru came, there was probably something she didn't get used to. And Bai Ling was hiding from Ku Wanru again, so Su Ming could only go by himself. However, when he arrived, he suddenly heard Bai Ling's voice coming from Ku Wanru's room. What's going on here? Su Ming was puzzled. But hearing the voice is that Bai Ling and Zaire are fighting, thinking that they are planning to get along well. In this case, Su Ming was relieved and turned back to his room. Today is the first night, and I have just determined their relationship, so naturally it is impossible to directly have the same room. With Ku Wanru's temperament, it is difficult to agree to such a thing for a while. And Su Ming is not so anxious. And now that Bai Ling is inside, it is even more inconvenient to start. Perhaps Bai Ling's appearance also has this layer of care in it. At this time, Bai Ling in Ku Wanru's room really thought so. Your lord shouldn't do anything with Miss Ku Wanru tonight, right? She has her own thoughts, and now she is afraid that Ku Wanru will trap Su Ming and she will no longer have a chance. So tonight, in the middle of the night, she might have to check to see if Su Ming is in the room. Su Ming slept soundly all night. Early the next morning, Bai Ling came to call Su Ming to get up. He was obviously relieved to see Su Ming in the room. Sir, what do you want for breakfast? Do whatever you want. Su Ming doesn't care what he eats. By the way, ask Wanru what they want to eat. Okay, my lord. Bai Ling did not resist. From what she learned last night, she also knew that Ku Wanru is a kind-hearted person who is easy to get along with. So she now has a lot more hope for the future. After washing up, Su Ming approached Huang San and talked about today's work requirements. Then he himself clicked on the panel and started today's summon. If a character of the same level as Shu Chu is summoned today, perhaps the equipment deterrence of the Black Elves can be ignored. Whether to summon, call, Su Ming confirmed, and then the screen began to rotate, and one by one plane world flashed. Eventually, the picture stops in a world. The plane of the Fox Demon Little Matchmaker. Which plane is this? Su Ming was a little puzzled. But he guessed that this should be a previous film and television, and it is likely that only some records exist now. After all, the era he lived in was completely surrounded by technology. This Fox Demon Little Matchmaker is not as classic as the Three Kingdoms, so it is normal that he has never heard of it. I don't know what's going on in this world, how can this be metaphysical? I can't find a name even if I want to pray. Can you think of a name? That won't work. If a normal character is summoned, it's not worth it. Su Ming was in distress. If it's something he's familiar with, he can analyze it. But what about this unheard of world? Would you like to try the label method of selection? Su Ming suddenly felt like he had a good idea. Make up your mind and start praying about what kind of role you want. Now there is Shu Chu on the land, so it is best to be a character who can fly. There are already warriors, so come to a mage. It was a man who was summoned for the first time, so let a woman neutralize it and protect Wanru by the way. Thinking of Ku Wanru, Su Ming couldn't help worrying about her temperament, so he added another condition. Be strong, be domineering, it's better to be ruthless, but don't be too bad-hearted. Now that you think about Ku Wanru, you have to think about it for yourself. Don't be clingy, be cool. Because the loyalty of the summoned characters is full. In the future, we have to be together often. If, like Bai Ling, the loyalty deteriorates, then Su Ming will get it. So decisively choose the high-cold type, which is not easy to be tempted. The conditions should be these. After all, the summons are not weak. As for how strong, I don't have a comparison standard. Then the world's top powerhouse, this should work. As if mentally ill, he folded his hands and muttered to himself for a long time, and finally Su Ming clicked the call. Ding. Summoning talent activated. Ding. Congratulations on getting Tushan Fox Demon, Tushan Yaya. A blue light cuts through the space. Su Ming looked at it, and suddenly, a cold air spread around. Immediately afterwards, a beautiful woman dressed in blue, with loose hair, loose bangs, animal ears, and bare feet walked out of the blue light. The woman's expression is cold and arrogant, and the emptiness is like a flat ground. The gaze that looked down at Su Ming did not show much respect, but instead looked like a bug. Su Ming didn't care about it. Well, it's okay to be concerned. Loyalty is 100 anyway, no matter what your attitude is, just follow orders and instructions. Su Ming lost a look at Tushan Yaya. Name, Tushan Yaya. Age, 26 years old. Identity, Fox Demon. Level, 1570. Qualification, SSS, Seal of the Lord. Occupation, ferry carried by plane. Loyalty, 100, full. HP, 5000, magic value, 10,000. Intelligence, 8,000, toughness, 1800, mental strength, 12,000. Skills, ice, absolute zero domain, red eye, fox mind, fox immortal passive. Equipment, endless jug. Introduction, nine-tailed Tianyu, the leader of the Demon League, majoring in coldness. Hint, Su Ming, the lord of the farming tribe, was summoned from the plane of the little matchmaker, the fox demon. The memory of the past life was removed, and the instinct and character were preserved. 5 skills are the same as Shu Chu, but Shu Chu has 3 passive skills, but most of her are control skills. I said I want a mage, but it turns out that control mage is also an algorithm mage. Su Ming secretly pondered the information on Tushan Yaya's panel. Frost, Absolute Zero Domain and Fox Mind Technique all have control effects, and Su Ming was worried that she wasn't doing enough damage for a while. But looking at the level, it seems that he is worried for nothing. When Su Ming was looking at the panel, Tushan Yaya was also looking at Su Ming. Su Ming came back to his senses, and when he saw Tushan Yaya's eyes, he thought there was something on him. I looked around and found nothing. Quote. What's the matter? What's so strange? Su Ming finally asked curiously. Lord, you are weak like a bug. Nian. Tushan Yaya's voice was as cold as her temperament, even her words were cold. It directly made Su Ming feel chills. Hey, just talk when you speak, and others will attack you personally. Su Ming warned with a face. He doesn't ask others to respect him much because he doesn't care. But he didn't want to be despised like that. Not a masochist. But looking at Tushan Yaya's expression, it was obvious that he didn't listen. Seeing this, Su Ming wanted to scold her mother. How to ask for a high cold type with a poisonous tongue? Tushan Yaya seemed to be curious about everything around her, so she ignored Su Ming and wandered around on her own. Her loyalty is 100, and she can see information about other people in the territory. Others can see her naturally, so Su Ming is not worried that she will be misunderstood by other members. After the call was over, Su Ming went to integrate the soldiers. The integration plan had been discussed with Huang San before, and a simplified regiment system was adopted, with 10 people as one team, 10 teams as one regiment, and 100 regiments as one army. The first head of the regiment was naturally Chen Dabing. As for Shu Chu, considering that he was required to be a bodyguard, he was not included in the army for the time being. Money Zhao. A separate escort group will be formed later. Ding. Congratulations on your successful formation of a legion, the title of the legion will be issued. Ding. Chen Dabing won the title of Captain, reputation plus 50, deterrence plus 100. Ding. Sun Dabao won the title of Captain, reputation plus 10, deterrence plus 10. Opening square bracket closing parenthesis. Su Ming was surprised again. At this time, Huang San suddenly came here. My lord, the elves sent elves to ask for negotiations. So early, it seems that we can't wait. Su Ming was not surprised, but smiled instead. Let's go, it just happens to be a training exercise. A group of people hurried towards the beach. On the way, Su Ming thought of Tu Shanyaya, looked at Huang San and asked, Old Huang, have you seen a woman in blue clothes? The woman in the blue dress. Huang San was stunned, then raised his hand and pointed to the air in front of him. My lord, are you talking about her? Su Ming looked in the direction and saw that Tu Shanyaya was already standing in front of the black elves to confront him. There is quite a posture that one person wants to destroy 1,000 troops. How did this fox demon run there? Su Ming was taken aback. Really rely on yourself at level 70, and then have to fight against all the siege equipment of others. On the opposite side, I saw Su Ming and others coming to the beach. Sophie bypassed Tushanyaya and brought a few elves to Su Ming. Lord, Sophie bowed respectfully to Su Ming. Although she is unwilling, her every move now affects whether the next negotiation can go smoothly. So she had to be cautious enough not to let Su Ming call out a single fault. You are, although Su Ming saw the information on the panel. Name, Isikate Sophie. Age, 28, locked. Level 35. But I don't know what to say when we meet, so I can only ask the name. My lord, my name is Isakat Sophie, the general of the Black Elves, and I will carry out the next negotiation with your lord. You can make all the decisions of the Black Elves. Are you sure you won't send a respected elves? Su Ming looked at Sophie too young and was very suspicious. Are there no elves in the Black Elves? My lord is joking, Sophie can make the decision, and she doesn't need to change to other elves. Sophie was also helpless. As a general, she negotiates, and her status is sufficient. But you must know that the priest Frau has already left the customs. Originally, they both recommended Frau to negotiate, but in the end they couldn't find her. And this morning, Frau suddenly appeared again to wake Sophie up and asked her to negotiate with the farming tribe. He kept insisting that he should not be too strong. If necessary, he could even grant more benefits to the farming tribe. This made Sophie very puzzled, and asked why she did this, and also asked why Frau didn't do it herself. Frau shook his head mysteriously, not wanting to reveal a word. It's just that in the end, he insisted that a reconciliation must be reached, even if Tia was temporarily left on Shuiyu Island. After speaking, he disappeared again. Sophie was helpless and could only follow the order and come to negotiate by herself. There were a few elders and a few female guards in the company. One of the guards has a black gem on his hand, which is not so conspicuous. Her eyes looked at the figure in the sky behind her from time to time, looking strange. I don't know whether to be excited or worried. The appearance of Tushan Yaya did bring a huge threat to Sophie and the others, so now their attitude is getting lower and lower. There's really no advantage at all. All kinds of favorable factors are occupied by farming tribes, and they only have siege equipment that can be used as a military threat. But they only dare to threaten, because Queen Tia is still in the hands of the other party. And the priest who gave high hopes didn't know what to do, and kept trying to ask for peace. Yesterday, I didn't come out to organize the elves again. Well then, I don't care anyway. Saying that, Su Ming gestured to Huang San. Huang San seemed to be prepared. He directly moved out of a long conference table, and then took out 2 more chairs. It was going to be done directly on the beach, and Sophie and others were not invited to the territory. Su Ming sat down directly, looked at Sophie and said, You have a lot of backbones in the elves, have you recruited all your life and occupations? Sophie, who was just about to sit down, was stunned, and looked at Su Ming in shock. From yesterday to now, they haven't found anyone to investigate the Black Elves. So how did Su Ming know? Indeed, 30% of the elves from the Black Elves are living occupations, but they are of high rank and are drawn to be strong men. Sophie smiled unnaturally. Sir, you are joking again, how can we bring in the elves of life professions? Su Ming shrugged noncommittally and stopped talking. Of course, he didn't investigate the Black Elves, but Tu Shan Yaya did. Isn't it still standing there now? After Tu Shan Yaya investigated, he sent Su Ming a voice transmission, so Su Ming naturally knew. At the same time, I have to sigh with emotion, the Black Elves are indeed quite strong. There are thousands of members above level 20, not to mention the low-level elves who are the base of the race. If they were recruited to develop the territory, how much help would that be? But this idea is obviously unrealistic. Seeing that Su Ming didn't ask any more questions, Sophie breathed a sigh of relief. My lord, is it time to start negotiations? Oh, yes, it's all right, what to say about you? Su Ming just reacted. We hope that you can release the queen. For this reason, we are willing to pay 10 million resources to help the lord develop. The farming tribe is a new force, and there must be a shortage of resources now, so Sophie is also doing what she likes. Ah, what did you say? Her lady queen. Su Ming pretended to be stupid. Sophie could not help frowning at this, knowing that she was not satisfied with the conditions. We donated 20 million resources, and also asked the adults to release the queen. Add 10 million, but Su Ming is still pretending to be stupid. Tia is in his territory, this is something everyone knows. But now Su Ming doesn't recognize it, and the elves can't search the territory. This also set a big problem for the elves. After several quotations, Su Ming did not agree. In the end, Sophie said helplessly, please don't embarrass us, adults, just open it on whatever conditions you want. Hearing this, Su Ming was excited. Just waiting for your words. This is what you asked, not me. I heard that your Black Elves are a 50th level force, I wonder how long it took to send the Chaj exhibition. Su Ming was not in a hurry and asked as if chatting. Sophie was startled again. How did Su Ming know the power level of the Black Elves? Could it be that while they surrounded Shuiyu Island, some people from Shuiyu Island went to investigate in the forest? But how long did it take to check the power situation of the Black Elves in one night and make an assessment? Sir, what you want to say may be blunt. Sophie didn't nod in response, but didn't deny it either. Su Ming held up 2 fingers at this time. 20%. I want 20% of the resource output of your territory within a year. What? Sophie stood up suddenly, shocked. The elders behind him were also full of righteous indignation and glared at Su Ming. Shameless, you are a lion's mouth. An elder cursed with extreme restraint. It is true that the situation is stronger than that of people, otherwise there will definitely be a child behind shameless. The other elders all spoke out against it. The female guards also had angry expressions on their faces. Except for one elf, that is the one with the black gem in his hand. She doesn't seem to care about negotiation, but looks behind Su Ming and the others from time to time, as if looking for something. You don't agree. Well, that's it, the negotiation is over. Su Ming also stood up. In this way, I really have plans to leave. Oh, wait, my lord. Sophie hurriedly stopped the man. If this is the case, then the negotiation does not know how long it will be delayed. My lord, we can discuss further. It's just that you need 20% in one breath, it's too much. 1%, how about 1%? After Sophie thought about it, although it would not be a loss to exchange 20% of her resources for the queen, she still felt that it was too much. A small force on Shuiyu Island, can you know what the output of the 50th level force is? So she suspected that Su Ming was asking for a price. 1%, what about sending beggars? Su Ming rejected Sophie's proposal without thinking. Seeing Su Ming's resolute attitude, Sophie was embarrassed for a while. In the end, only gritted his teeth and agreed. Okay, we are willing to give 20% of the resources, but we have to see the queen first and take the queen back. Hearing Sophie agree, Su Ming smiled. But for Sophie's later words, Su Ming sneered, do you think you can come up with so many resources at once? If I return your queen to you, what should you do if you default on your debts and don't give resources? Don't treat people like fools, okay. Everyone is 18, can you be more mature? You, an elder behind Sophie pointed at Su Ming angrily, but was stopped by another. Why stop me? He's not sincere at all, and he won't agree to any conditions. The held elder said angrily. Sincereness, what kind of sincerity do I want? It's you who came to ask me to negotiate, and you asked me to make conditions. What kind of sincerity do I want? I'm still standing here with the greatest sincerity, are you still not satisfied? Then why don't I invite you to my house for a cup of tea? Then I will serve you well. Su Ming looked at the elder with contempt, and the elder's face flushed with anger. He wanted to refute Su Ming again, but Sophie raised her hand to stop it. My lord, isn't it inappropriate for you to give us a short IOU just asking for benefits? Sophie tried her best to calm herself down to avoid being carried away by anger. Tell me, what conditions do you want? Seeing Sophie's expression, Su Ming sat down again. At this moment, the maid behind Sophie suddenly moved the corner of her mouth. A voice entered Sophie's mind. Priest. Hearing the sound, Sophie's first reaction was that the priest was around. But she didn't show the slightest abnormality. At the same time, he also sat down and looked at Su Ming with more confidence. Sir, I wonder if there are a few guests from Mochizuki Valley in your territory. Hearing Sophie's words, Su Ming frowned. What do you mean by that? Nothing else, just curious to ask. Sophie smiled and continued. Would you like to contact those guests from Mochizuki Valley and ask them to ask about the situation in Mochizuki Valley? Old Huang, contact Bai Ling and ask her to ask about the situation. Of course Su Ming can communicate with Ku Wanru himself, but it is obviously inconvenient in this situation. So choose a roundabout strategy and let Huang-san get in touch. 10 minutes later, Dapeng brought Ku Wanru and the three to the beach. Ku Wanru looked a little flustered. Su Ming got up to meet him. What's the matter? Don't worry, talk slowly. Su Ming, my territory is surrounded. The Black Elves did it. Okay, I see. Su Ming turned her head and glanced at Sophie, knowing what she was talking about. Don't worry, they don't dare to do it, it's just a threat. Comfort Ku Wanru and let her relax. Ku Wanru also saw Sophie and others, and at first she thought it was just a reception. When I heard the word threat, I instantly understood. Su Ming, will this affect you? Ku Wanru asked worriedly. Su Ming smiled and shook his head. It doesn't matter, they don't have much effect, don't worry. By the way, can you take a look at the situation of Mochizuki Valley being surrounded? Is it serious? Well, I'll contact the housekeeper now. Ku Wanru said and dialed Butler Lu's correspondence. My lord, our territory is surrounded, and those elves are of high level. I'm afraid those who come here are not good. 5. Butler Lu's voice came. His expression was equally anxious, helpless about the situation he encountered. How to deal with the gap of more than 10 levels? Uncle Lu, don't worry, you can pass on the situation outside and let us take a look. Okay, I'll go right now. Saying that, Butler Lu hurried away. He was not far from the outside of the valley, and he returned to the scene outside the valley after a while. But this scene surprised everyone. The Black Elves of Sophie and the others even started to turn red, but it was not so obvious because of their skin color. In the picture, dozens of elves, including 4 generals, were all lying on their backs and sleeping. Some are lying on trees, some are lying on stones, and some are lying directly on the grass. Leisure can't be more leisurely. Those who know that they are besieging Mochizuki Valley, but those who don't know they think this is a group play outside Mochizuki Valley. Sophie was really speechless. How could there be such a group of pig teammates? They are mainly led by the 4 generals. In this way, do the Black Elves still have prestige in front of Shuiyu Island? Su Ming was also surprised. General Isaka, the way you surround yourself is quite unique. Sophie looked embarrassed and was speechless about Su Ming's molestation. However, considering the next negotiation, he still endured the embarrassment and responded. My lord, this shows our determination to reconcile. Our clansmen only surrounded Mochizuki Valley, but they did not offend in the slightest. With such sincerity, I hope that the adults will not make it too difficult for us. As soon as Sophie said this, Dongshu's dereliction of duty turned into a deliberate arrangement. It also reduced the maliciousness infinitely, and it became a more favorable condition for them. In this regard, Su Ming couldn't help but look at Sophie. However, considering the fact that Mochizuki Valley was surrounded, Su Ming decided to give in. Tell me, what do you want? Negotiations are nothing more than an exchange of interests. We hope your lord can release our queen. Sophie said tentatively. Don't be silly, say the next condition. How could Su Ming agree to such a condition? It would be an idiot to agree. Sophie sighed helplessly. When she mentioned this condition, she thought that Su Ming would not agree, and the result was obviously the same. In her eyes now, Su Ming is as cunning as a fox and as stubborn as a fool. Too many flowers and intestines are going to die, and they also bite to death and don't let go of their interests. But the most important thing is that the black elf really can't do anything about Su Ming. To attack, need to consider Tia's safety. Rescue secretly. With the limitation of the spirit binding formation, they need to lower their level and their strength is greatly reduced. There is no way to rescue Tia from Shueyu Island without a sound. So the only way is to negotiate. Then we hope that you can reduce the resource conditions, sir, and we are willing to exchange 10% for the queen. Sophie lowered the terms. She felt that this was their biggest concession. But when he saw Su Ming's expression, his face suddenly sank. Su Ming looked at Sophie like an idiot. Do you think I really don't know how much resource output the 50-level forces have? Or until now, are you still fooling me as a fool? A faction that is less than level 5, do you think it can compare to 10% of the resource output? Now that Ku Wanru has been taken to Shueyu Island, Moon Valley is completely an empty shell to Su Ming. If he hadn't taken care of Ku Wanru's emotions, he might not have even asked the Black Elves to make conditions. Sophie's heart sank to the bottom. And at this moment, the corner of the female guard behind her moved again. When Ku Wanru and the others came here just now, the female guard never took her eyes off them. First observe Ku Wanru, then Zaire, and then Bai Ling. When he saw Bai Ling, his eyes lit up obviously, and his heart suddenly became enlightened. However, when I saw Bai Ling's docile look behind Ku Wanru, I also had a bad premonition in my heart. That's right, this female guard is exactly what Fra is pretending to be. The purpose is to find someone. Now that people have found it, it is Bai Ling. But considering what was in the prophecy, combined with Bai Ling's appearance, made her doubtful. Secretly said, sure enough, my worries are correct, if nothing happens in the middle of this incident, the prophecy will not appear. But since I have already found it, I have a 100% certainty to make it a reality. Sophie seemed to have made up her mind and broke off her previous thoughts. Intend to follow the instructions just received. Since your lord thinks this way, let's send someone to take care of the queen. That should be okay, right? And, after we paid 20% of the resources, I hope your lord will not break your promise and let us go, her lady queen. This is our biggest concession, otherwise, there will only be a war. It is said to be caring, but in fact it is also a kind of protection. Just as Su Ming doesn't trust them, they don't trust Su Ming either. Okay, I promise you this condition, but there are at most 10 elves, and no fighting elves. Su Ming obviously heard Sophie's plan. No, Sophie immediately rejected Su Ming's words. If you don't send fighting elves, what's the difference between sending them hostages? When Su Ming wants to tear up the contract, it will not be easy. The elves will be helpless. Then what do you say? Su Ming's attitude this time was not too tough, and he guessed that he would be rejected. However, I didn't intend to get them to agree when I said this, I just made a trick, so that all the elves they sent were not all fighting professions. We will send 5 combat occupations, and 5 life occupations. If you don't assign a life career, how can you take care of Tia? Literally can't tell, so the next combat career has become the top priority. Yes, the combat profession cannot have mages, nor can there be elves who are proficient in teleportation magic. Su Ming also has his own concerns. After getting the information from Tushan Yaya before, he was really tempted by this black elves. There are plans to incorporate in the future. That being the case, it is naturally impossible to start a war, and there is no hope for racial hatred. So control Tia well, and this becomes his trump card 9. After thinking about it, Sophie responded, okay, then the adults can check by themselves. Well, you can talk to Huang-san about the following matters. After saying that, Su Ming left with Ku Wanru. He really didn't know what the resource output of the 50-level forces was, but Huang-san knew. And this matter was originally planned to be done by Huang-san, so naturally he didn't need to trouble him. Huang-san bowed to Sophie. Then took out a contract and pushed it in front of Sophie. This general, I am in charge of the rest. Sophie took a look at the contract and was shocked. looking up at Huang San with a ghostly look. It is clearly written. The Black Elves of the Gore Forest have delivered 200 million resources. The annual resource output of their elves is about 1 billion, and what Huang San gives is exactly 20%. How does a 10th level force know the resource output of a 50 level force? This is Sophie's most curious question. So it can be seen that initially, Sophie's condition was completely fooling Su Ming and the others. Said to be sincerity, 10 million is called sincerity. In the following communication process, Sophie began to feel really tired. They all wanted Su Ming to come back and continue the conversation. Because Huang San's mind is too meticulous, all the affairs, big and small, are organized in an orderly manner. Their elves can't get a shred of cheapness. In this way, it is estimated that it is a large amount of consumption just on the way to deliver resources. Of course, it would be unrealistic to call Su Ming back. Su Ming didn't bother to argue with her about these things. And Tu Shan Yaya seems to have been observing the negotiation situation here, and when Su Ming left, she also turned around and came back. Without Su Ming's order, she naturally wouldn't do it. The confrontation in the past was just curiosity, and at the same time I wanted to see what the creatures in this world were like. She saw a goblin before, and now she sees an elves, all of which are different from her previous world. So she was very curious, is there any demon in this world? Tu Shan Yaya, go and replace Shu Chu and let him rest. Su Ming saw that Tushan Yaya had nothing to do, so she arranged for her to do something. With her arrogant temperament, it is estimated that it will be very interesting to meet Tia, who has a changeable temperament. As for whether Shu Chu really needs to rest, that doesn't matter. As far as his panel was concerned, it would be fine to fight for 9 days and 10 nights, not to mention guarding for 1 night. Tu Shan Yaya didn't respond, but she didn't refuse either, it was a default. However, when passing by Su Ming, he suddenly said softly, the negotiation just now went well. Su Ming. He glanced at Tu Shan Yaya in surprise. Who is this lord? How do I feel like the one I've been summoned to? Seeing that Tushan Yaya had left, she shook her head. Su Ming didn't care much, turned around and started talking to Ku Wanru. How was your rest last night? A morning passed quickly. Because Huang San was busy with the Black Elves, Su Ming arranged the upgrade of the building to a few bricklayers in the forge. They are all senior talents in the industry, so let them take full responsibility and can rest assured. The fish industry in the territory has also begun to develop into the sea, and Shuiyuedan will only be used as a viewing point from now on. During dinner, Su Ming contacted Tu Shan Yaya. Unexpectedly, Tushan Yaya brought Tia too. And they came in hand. What's the situation? Su Ming looked surprised. By the way, how did these two play together? Now it's really interesting. Tu Shan Yaya did not shy away from Su Ming's gaze. Pulling Tia in front of him, he announced very domineeringly, this elf, I will protect it from now on. Boom. Shu Chu suddenly stood up and glared at Tu Shan Yaya. To Su Ming, Tu Shan Yaya's behavior was already disrespectful. Su Ming could not care, but he couldn't. Including others, they all do not understand Tushan Yaya's behavior. They all know more or less the identity of Tia, that is the hostage, the bargaining chip in Su Ming's hands. Protect her. How to protect her? Shu Chu. Su Ming shouted to stop. If this fight is here, it will not look good. And it is not clear who is stronger or weaker between the two, because they are both limited and the level is only 15. You sit down and eat. Shu Chu responded and sat down. Su Ming turned to look at Tu Shan Yaya, the smile on his face disappeared. You want to protect her. How? Keep her safe from you. Oh, when did I bully her? Su Ming was curious. You stole her space backpack, which is full of girl stuff. Then what do you want to do? Give her the backpack. Condition, I can grant you a request. But I don't need it, you can't refuse my order. But there are some things you can't order me. Su Ming couldn't help narrowing his eyes, and there was a hint of danger in his eyes. But it quickly disappeared, his face changed, and he said with a smile, okay, I promise you, but sooner or later, you will regret your reckless actions. Saying that, Su Ming threw the backpack to Tia, and nothing inside was moved. Since you're here, let's eat together. Bai Ling, go and prepare a table and chopsticks. Su Ming greeted, and just like that, the farce ended. Loyalty is always just loyalty. Everyone still has independent thoughts and will not follow Su Ming's thoughts 100%. It's just that they will obey Su Ming's orders, even if they let them die. If it is violated, then the rule-making world will act to obliterate it. Because it has established a loyalty of 100, it is a die-hard. But there are exceptions to everything. In some cases, Su Ming's request, but this request is not linked to loyalty. Then it is natural to refuse. At this time, it is necessary to voluntarily. In Gear Forest, several elders looked at each other and stood together to discuss something. Hey, what do you say the priest is looking for that thing? I don't know, isn't this strange weed used for aphrodisiac? The priests are already this age. Shish, you don't want to live anymore. It's all choreographed. Oh, yes, sins and sins, I can't choose words. Quote. I think, it should be some kind of medicine that the priest wants to practice, otherwise he wouldn't be looking for it. Didn't you see that the priest took other things? But apart from aphrodisiacs, what other medicines would you want to use ecstasy? Perhaps it doesn't matter what new prescription the priest is working on. At this time, the priest still has the leisure to refine medicine. Is she worried about the queen at all? How can you not be worried? The queen originally left the elves with the support of the priest and led us here. Then why didn't you see the priest during the negotiation just now? I don't know about this, maybe the priest is busy with something. In the afternoon, Sophie brought the elves in person and sent the first batch of resources casually, which amounted to 500,000. Since neither side had a cross-sea vessel, they could only carry so much. Moreover, the ships have already begun to be built, and more resources will be shipped in the future. But what surprised Su Ming was that Sophie was actually among the 10 elves who came to Moon Island. You want to come too? Aren't you a general? Aren't you afraid that your home will be stolen after you come here? Su Ming looked Sophie up and down. Sophie had already unloaded her equipment at this time, dressed in a sassy outfit, revealing her long tight legs and an attractive waist. The temperament of the whole body has also changed, like an elf. Being looked at by Su Ming like this, Sophie felt a little uncomfortable. My lord is joking. Although Sophie is a general, there is more than one general in the clan, so there is nothing to worry about. Other generals, those wine bags and rice bags sleeping outside Mochizuki Valley. Sophie was speechless, because this is a fact that many people and elves have seen just now. Unable to refute, the most deadly. Su Ming joked a few times and then said nothing. Sophie's identity information has been known for a long time. The elf warrior, who knows a little magic, but not space, meets the requirements. What about the space backpack? Open it and take a look. Su Ming suddenly ordered Sophie. Sophie suddenly became nervous. Chapter 71. Because in Sophie's backpack, in addition to the clothes and daily necessities brought to Tia, there is one thing hidden. Space teleportation scroll. If it is really checked, it will definitely be found. Space backpack. What space backpack? What are you talking about? My lord, how could I possibly have that thing? Sophie began to play dumb. But Su Ming obviously didn't believe it. Don't show it, right? Then change the elf, you don't have to use it, and replace it with another elf. Su Ming said without mercy. What? Sophie was stunned. Does this just start chasing people? No room for negotiation. Or does Su Ming know about the existence of space scrolls? If this is to be found, it will definitely be confiscated. However, compared with a space scroll, Tia's safety was definitely more important, and Sophie certainly couldn't leave. In the end, Sophie had no choice but to show Su Ming the backpack she saw. But what surprised Sophie was that after Su Ming watched it for a while, she didn't say anything and let her go. What's the situation? He didn't find the space scroll. Sophie was suspicious, but if that was the case, it would be a happy event. Then she took a lucky look at the backpack, and suddenly found that the space scroll she had put in herself was gone. Hey, why are you missing? Sophie couldn't help but exclaimed in surprise. Su Ming turned around and looked at her curiously. What's missing? Nothing. Sophie waved her hands hastily. At first she thought it was Su Ming who took it without saying a word, but after thinking about it, Su Ming had no reason to do so. He could tear it apart and send her back with the scroll down. Looking at Su Ming's reaction now, it is obvious that he did not see the space scroll. Su Ming has the detection skills, and the name of the item is clear at a glance. If he sees the space scroll, he will definitely attract attention at the first time. But he really didn't see the scroll. So the question is, where did the space scroll go? The answer is in Fra. Fra, disguised as an elf maid again, is one of the 5 living professional elves. These 5 elves are Tia's maids in the Tree Palace, and they have always taken care of Tia's daily life. So this time, it was natural to bring it with you. And the maid who was disguised by Fula was naturally still in the Gore Forest, and she was also with Fula's clone to prove her future. The black gem in Fula's hand once again concealed her identity and deceived Su Ming's investigation. In Su Ming's eyes, she became Yura. Infiltrating successfully, Fra also began her plan. Her gift-giving plan. In the evening, the bricklayers successfully upgraded the dwellings and warehouses to level 10. Su Ming went to recruit, and there were hundreds more members in the territory. After that, the only thing left to do is to upgrade the forge to level 10, and then you can use resources to upgrade the main city. But this dinner was a bit outrageous. Su Ming and the others are business as usual. But there was one more Tushan Yaya, and Tushan Yaya brought Tia, and there were 10 more elves around Tia. Their elves can't dine with the queen. And even if they wanted to be together, they wouldn't be able to sit down. Therefore, 10 elves stood and watched the crowd eat. The others were okay, only Su Ming and Ku Wanru were really not used to it. Tushan Yaya, you are too much, how can people eat? Su Ming put down the tableware and asked. How did I go too far? Don't I just bring a genie? You call this a genie? They are Tia's maids, what do they have to do with me? Tushan Yaya directly shirks responsibility. Su Ming looked at Tia again. Tia looked dumb and pretended to be stupid. I'm a queen anyway, is it too much to bring a few maids? And I told them to retire, but they don't want to, what can I do? Su Ming was annoyed by this and said angrily, in the future, you and Tushan Yaya will open a dining room alone, don't come here. Even if you dine with one prisoner, the prisoner still has a maid. And there are still 10. Looking at it, she is more like a master. Tushan Yaya suddenly said, I'm not going, I'm here. Tia also followed. I'm not going either, where Yaya is, I'll be there. You have to go if you don't, unless you throw those tails of yours away, it's not negotiable. Su Ming looked determined. Tia glanced at Tushan Yaya, then turned to look at Sophie and the others. You have also seen, you have already affected my meal here, why don't you retreat? But, my lord, your safety. Sophie hesitated. What can I do? If the resources don't arrive, they won't do anything to me, and I still have Yaya to protect me, don't worry. AJ. Sophie wanted to say something. At this moment, Tia's expression suddenly turned cold. What, you think I'm a prisoner now, so I can't order you? If that's the case, then go back. I'm fine here, and I don't need to serve. My lady queen, calm down, let's step back. Seeing Tia lose her temper, Sophie and the others hurriedly left. Tia turned to look at Su Ming, changed a smile, and said, how is it? Is it all right now? Su Ming was stunned. Originally thought that it was fast enough to change his face, but Tia was not expected to be better. Seeing that Sophie and the others had left, Su Ming didn't say anything else. At night, Su Ming took Ku Wanru for a walk on the beach. There were only 2 people this time, Zaire Shuchu and the others did not follow. Slowly, the 2 of them were tired from walking and sat under a coconut tree to rest. Ku Wanru leaned on Su Ming's shoulder. Su Ming took out a golden whip from the backpack space and handed it to Ku Wanru. Here, it's for you. What is this? Can't you check it yourself? Too lazy to look. Su Ming smiled and introduced. The golden whip with tiger tail, a special item, can deter beasts, and can also prevent other beasts from being malicious to you. Using it to attack wild beasts will not generate hatred. It's interesting. Ku Wanru pushed the tiger's tail golden whip and said, then why don't you keep it? It's useless if I take it. How can it be useless? With it, you can also command wild beasts on this island in the future. And I didn't say that there is only one thing. Su Ming insisted. Seeing this, Ku Wanru no longer shied away. Just sat there quietly and chatted for 2 hours. Ku Wanru suddenly asked, Su Ming, when will we get married? I can do it anytime. Look at you, are you going to get married in this world, or go back to the real world? Of course it's in this world. I don't know how many years I'll have to wait for my territory to reach level 60. If I go back to the real world, I'll be old by then. Ha ha ha, that's fine, we'll get together in this world. In a few days, I'll take over the important people in your territory, and we'll get together at that time. Ah, how fast. Ku Wanru suddenly felt anxious again. Why, not ready yet? Su Ming turned to look at Ku Wanru's eyes and asked softly. No, it just feels like a few days is a little too fast. Ku Wanru's face became ruddy, and she didn't know whether it was from Hong Yueying or her own. After a while, Ku Wanru raised her head curiously when she saw that Su Ming did not speak. It happened to meet Su Ming's affectionate eyes, and he couldn't help being a little crazy for a while. Su Ming kissed Ku Wanru affectionately. For a long time, her lips parted. Facing Ku Wanru's tender eyes, there were tears in her eyes. Su Ming hugged Ku Wanru and said softly, Wanru, go to my place to sleep tonight. Ku Wanru nodded lightly. Since it has been confirmed, there will be no hesitation, this is the happiness Ku Wanru wants to capture. At 11 o'clock at night, Su Ming returned with Ku Wanru in his arms. Ku Wanru had contacted Zaire in advance, saying that she was going to sleep first tonight, so there was no need to wait. Zaire obediently agreed. Coincidentally, Bai Ling was right next to Zaire. Hearing this sentence, I felt bad, so I excused myself and left, and began to wait at the gate of the Lord's mansion. Su Ming waited for this time, and it was estimated that everyone was asleep at this point, and at the same time was taking care of Ku Wanru's thin skin. In addition, chatting with Ku Wanru just now, imagining the future, and forgetting the time for a while. And after they left, in the sea in the distance, a half-length figure appeared on the water's surface, and his gaze was in their direction. It's the Kraken, and it's a pity they didn't notice. Back at the Lord's mansion, Su Ming met Bai Ling. Ku Wanru buried her head in Su Ming's arms, so she didn't see it. Su Ming also pretended not to see it, and was about to walk by the wrong way. However, Bai Ling's eyes began to turn red, and tears flashed. Finally, when Su Ming was about to leave, he shouted unwillingly. Lord, Lord, at night, no matter how small the sound is so loud. Su Ming suddenly felt bad in his heart. Sure enough, when Ku Wanru heard the voice, she immediately raised her head. Just saw Bai Ling. His face instantly turned red, and he began to struggle to get down from Su Ming's arms. Then he smiled awkwardly at Bai Ling. He looked at Su Ming and said, Su Ming, I'm not ready, can you wait a few more days? Su Ming had the urge to kill directly in his heart. However, looking at Ku Wanru's eyes, there was no difference, and she said gently, well, yes, I also think it's too fast. It's already like this, what else can Su Ming do? According to Ku Wanru's temperament, tonight is impossible. Well, then I'll go to bed first. After speaking, Ku Wanru left as if escaping. Su Ming watched her walk away with a smile, and then quickly changed her face. Bai Ling, come to my room. At this moment, Su Ming's eyes were full of desire, and a nameless anger was also in his heart, and now the anger is hard to dispel. Bai Ling's troubles must naturally be borne by her. When Bai Ling on the other side saw this, not only was he not worried, but he was actually happy. The next morning, Bai Ling woke up from Su Ming's bed. Looking at Su Ming next to him, he was very satisfied. Seeing that Su Ming wasn't awake, he started stroking Su Ming's firm chest provocatively. After a while, Su Ming reacted and began to wake up. Bai Ling, don't make trouble, you're sleepy. Su Ming was still a little awake at this time, thinking that it was the same as last time, that it was Bai Ling who woke him up. But when he saw Bai Ling's naked appearance, he instantly woke up. Uncovering the quilt, looking at his appearance, he suddenly shouted badly in his heart. Thinking back carefully about what happened last night, I was secretly annoyed. How come I don't have the slightest desire at ordinary times, but this desire can't be suppressed together? It's all right now, I can't control my lower body, Wanru is in trouble. Su Ming couldn't help holding his forehead. When Bai Ling saw this, the joy on his face began to slowly dissipate. Grown-ups. Su Ming followed the reputation. I saw Bai Ling's eyes were flushed red, and she was about to cry. Su Ming reacted instantly and hugged Bai Ling. It's okay, I'll take care of it. At the same time, I scolded myself shabby inwardly. Is this the time to think about other things? Seeing what Su Ming looked like just now, Bai Ling might have wondered whether she would be abandoned. The happy life that he had longed for had vanished in a blink of an eye. Bai Lingwo was in Su Ming's arms, unable to cry. She felt that her heart was going to be broken just now, and now she can't control her emotions for a while. Su Ming comforted her softly, and it took a while for Bai Ling to recover. He looked up at Su Ming and said, "Sir, I know you like Miss Ku Wanru, I shouldn't have done that last night. But I'm not reconciled. Miss Ku Wanru is liked by adults, and adults will definitely not give up. But my lord, once you get Miss Ku Wanru, I will have no chance. I'm not too demanding, as long as you can love me, I don't need any status. Even if you want me to be an underground lover, I can serve you and Miss Ku Wanru in the future, and promise not to cause you any trouble." 5. Sir, don't want Bai Ling, okay. Relatively speaking, Bai Ling's love is humble, because it is only a one-sided love. She doesn't have any advantage over Ku Wanru, and even the most confident looks are just on the same level as Ku Wanru. So she wanted Su Ming to accept herself, and she was destined not to use conventional methods. She thought carefully several times because she understood this, in order to create more opportunities for herself. It's okay to say she has a plan or to pretend to be pitiful, but at least she hasn't done anything wrong to other people so far. Fine, I understand. Su Ming looked at Bai Ling and said, "Don't be too inferior, since things have happened, it is a foregone conclusion." Wanru sighed, "I will explain to her, although I will wrong her, but I will not let go, do you understand what I mean?" Bai Ling nodded obediently. "Will not let go, that is, polygamy. This is normal in this world, but for Su Ming and the others, they have to get used to it gradually." Just then, footsteps were heard outside the door. Then Ku Wanru's voice sounded. "Su Ming, are you awake?" Ku Wanru is very happy today, because she and Su Ming have almost confirmed their wedding date last night. So I came to find Su Ming early this morning, like a couple in love, unwilling to part for a minute. Bai Ling, who was in the house, panicked and hurriedly looked for clothes. But this can't help but cause pain. Su Ming held her down and said softly, "Okay, Wanru will know about this sooner or later. You take a rest, I'll open the door, I'm taking care of anything." After saying that, Su Ming got up and got dressed. At the moment when it was opened by Qian Hao's son, a little bit of red flashed on it, but it was quickly covered by Bai Ling. Su Ming smiled, got dressed, and opened the door. Seeing Su Ming, Ku Wan smiled softly. But the next second, suddenly his nose moved. "Su Ming, why do you have a scent on your body? I don't remember last night. Could it be that the quilt has a scent?" Saying that, Ku Wanru looked towards the bed. For a moment, the four eyes lifted towards each other. The air froze for a while, and the needles could be heard falling. My lord, why are you standing outside?" At this time, Zaire appeared out of nowhere, holding 2 steamed buns in her hand, eating them while taking a bite. When he came to the door of the room, he looked into the room curiously, and then he was stunned, and the steamed bun in his hand fell to the ground. A storm rolled in my mind. This is the rape scene. For a while, no one spoke. Su Ming is waiting for Ku Wanru's scolding, if so, his next job will be easier. But if Ku Wanru turned around and left, then Su Ming would just wait for a protracted battle. In the end, Su Ming was lucky. Ku Wanru turned her head to look at Su Ming, and her eyes showed a variety of complex emotions such as disappointment and sadness. With all kinds of emotions intertwined, Ku Wanru was speechless for a while. Just asked. Just because last night I didn't. You're like this. At this moment, Ku Wanru also regretted her disappointment last night and left like that. Su Ming, a young boy with strong vigor, how could he still hold back after such a long preparation? So Ku Wanru felt that she was also responsible. People from the real world, no woman wants to share her man with others. Ku Wanru was the same at first. But now, the facts are in sight. If Ku Wanru still insists on her previous ideas, then she has to give up Su Ming, but is she willing? Unwilling. Although Ku Wanru is weak, her determination is not easy to change. Su Ming is the person he identified, so he won't let go easily. But it is impossible for her to accept it all at once, and there must be no less punishment for Su Ming. Otherwise, it will be messed up later. Ku Wanru had the idea of being the principal room before, and of course she had to have her own attitude. Su Ming nodded when he heard Ku Wanru's question. Yes, no. The answer is ambiguous. Saying yes is a response to Ku Wanru's question. Saying no is because I don't want to define the relationship with Bai Ling as an accident. Otherwise, Bai Ling's identity will become a girl in the house, just a tool for Su Ming to vent her desires. Although Ku Wanru would not be too satisfied with this answer, he still insisted on it. Then what are you going to do? After taking a few deep breaths, Ku Wanru adjusted her emotions. I need to be responsible to Bai Ling. What about me? Ku Wanru looked at Su Ming and asked. I won't give up. Su Ming said it very seriously. A sneer appeared on Ku Wanru's face. But in fact, my heart is a little more fortunate. Why isn't she worried that Su Ming will give up on herself directly? If Su Ming's head is a little more stubborn, his thoughts are a little more pivotal, and his face is thinner. As for Bai Ling, the first woman, Ku Wanru is hopeless. So hearing Su Ming's words, Ku Wanru breathed a sigh of relief. However, the superficial effort has to be done enough. Crack! Ku Wanru slapped Su Ming's face directly. You shameless! He cursed angrily, then turned to leave. This slap can be regarded as venting the anger in his heart. Last night, I had already reached the point of talking about marriage, and in a blink of an eye, I fell into someone else's bed. Chaj, this is difficult for anyone to accept calmly. Su Ming quickly grabbed Ku Wanru's wrist. Ku Wanru broke free, and walked away quickly. Looking at Ku Wanru's back, Su Ming sighed. But I thought to myself, the start is not bad, at least I didn't turn around and leave, and the next thing is to grind hard. He turned to look at Zaire suddenly. Zaire was still in a daze. Ku Wanru's slap hit Su Ming on the face just now, but it shocked her. They are now in Su Ming's territory. Will they be hated for such behavior? Then they will be thrown into the sea to feed the fish. Zaire was deeply worried. Cough. Su Ming coughed. Zaire woke up, saw Su Ming looking at her, and quickly covered her chest with her hands, her face terrified. Sir, don't mess around, I'll call you. Forehead. Su Ming was directly confused by Zaire's reaction. It seems that in her eyes, she has become a bad person. What's your reaction? I won't treat you like that. But your lord, you don't even spare the maid. Zaire suddenly cried a little. In terms of appearance, Zaire is not ugly at all, and can even be said to be exquisite and cute. But Su Ming didn't have the slightest idea of her. Don't worry, I'm not interested in you. Su Ming raised his forehead and said something hurtful. That's great. Zaire was excited when she heard it. Then, my lord, I'll go first. Single quote. Said to leave. Wait a moment. Su Ming stopped softly. Zaire immediately fell to her knees and bowed with her hands together. Don't worry, my lord, I promise not to tell you that you like maids. Don't kill me, my lord. Zaire doesn't have much loyalty to Su Ming, nor is she familiar with Su Ming's temperament. So when Su Ming stopped her, she couldn't help but have a lot of cruel thoughts in her heart. Quote. Su Ming is also going to be confused by Shi. Why does this girl like brain supplements so much? You get up, I won't kill you, don't think about it. I stopped you because I wanted you to prepare some food, give some to your family, and then bring some over. In the past 2 days, Zaire and Bai Ling were already familiar with each other, and she was also helping to cook, so she was no stranger to the kitchen. Zaire raised her head and looked at Su Ming very seriously, seeing that he didn't seem to be fooling around, so she believed it. Okay sir, I'll go right now. Get up quickly and run. But after 2 steps, he suddenly turned back. Under Su Ming's puzzled eyes, he picked up the 2 steamed buns that he had just dropped, and ran away again. Su Ming laughed dumbly, but after thinking about Ku Wanru's incident, the smile quickly solidified. After adjusting his emotions, he turned around and went back to the room. Being beaten and having to comfort another person is a sin. Past in the morning, it's time to eat. As Su Ming thought, Ku Wanru did not come. The others were curious and all looked at Su Ming. It's nothing, just eat, don't worry, I'll send it to her later. Su Ming waved his hand. Yaya and Tia looked at each other as if smelling something. Tia's eyes were gloating, while Yaya's eyes were plain. They are all sharp-minded people and have a terrifying sixth sense, so their guesses are almost inseparable. After eating, Su Ming delivered the food truthfully. Knocked on the door. Wanru, I know you are inside. No matter how angry you were with me, you can't stop eating. It's not good to be hungry, I will feel distressed. This is your favorite meal specially made by Xie. I'll put it at the door for you. Remember to eat on time. Without saying a few words, Su Ming put down the basket and left. Now Ku Wanru was in a fit of anger. She said more and more mistakes, just to express her attitude of admitting her mistakes. It's better to beg for forgiveness in a soft-spoken way after the anger subsides. Of course, Su Ming did not leave completely. Looking at Ku Wanru's room quietly in a corner. The location is not particularly conspicuous, but as long as the line of sight sweeps over, it can still be seen. 10 minutes later, Ku Wanru's door opened. I didn't take the basket for the first time, but looked around, as if looking for something. Then I saw Su Ming raising his hand to say hello. Ku Wanru was expressionless, picked up the basket and went back to the room. Su Ming was overjoyed. It seemed that Ku Wanru was quite tolerant towards her. But because of this, Su Ming felt even more guilty, and swore to himself that he would never fail Ku Wanru. A few hours later, Su Ming is sorting out some documents sent by Huang San, and the previous proposal has been discussed. Many appointments have been issued, and the hierarchy has initially taken shape. Huang San suddenly came in at this time. Sir, there is a group of tourists with dozens of people outside, with a lot of goods. They want to dock with us at the dock to trade with us. How should we choose? Traveler, it seems that it is indeed easier to attract foreign forces after the power develops. Now the prestige of Su Ming's territory has exceeded 10,000, and he is well known in the surrounding area. Go get in touch with them, and bring Feng Damu with you, buy the resources you need directly, and get the funds yourself. I also have some materials here, and you can also sell them when you trade with them. The materials are all the boost materials that the soldiers brushed these days, and the excess is left after building the equipment. For Huang San, Su Ming is 100% trustworthy. Yes, my lord, I promise to complete the task. Huang San took the materials and ordered to retreat. Su Ming was a little surprised by the appearance of traveling merchants. It is said that the goods carried by the traveling merchants are all different. They each have their own fortunes, and there are not a few rare treasures in their hands. It just makes Su Ming a little puzzled, why there are dozens of people in this tour. He had also chatted with Feng Damu before, and knew that most of the traveling merchants were small groups. Some even act alone. In contrast, the strength of travel merchants will not be too weak. There will always be strong players in the team who have changed careers, otherwise the team will easily disperse. But these dozens of people, a big group, right? It's enough to destroy a small force. However, although there are some concerns in his heart, Su Ming feels that this is the first time he has encountered a trade with a travel merchant, and it should be smooth. After all, his luck wasn't that bad. Not long after, Feng Damu suddenly ran over in a hurry. Su Ming has just dealt with the internal affairs and is sorting out the information. Lord, something is not going well. Oh, Mu Lao, you have something to say slowly, what happened? Su Ming is a little disapproving. After all, what big things can happen in the territory? My lord, I suspect that the origin of those traveling merchants is unknown. Feng Damu said very anxiously. He used to be a travel businessman before, so he is naturally very aware of the travel business industry. Su Ming moved his hands. He also knows Feng Damu's previous experience, and what Feng Damu said still has some credibility. How? What did you find? Su Ming put down the documents and stepped forward. Feng Damu said, Sir, when I first arrived at the pier, I saw members of the traveling merchants looking around at the situation on the island. It could be out of curiosity, but they're different, they're looking at it with a sea mirror. Sea viewing mirror, that's something only navigators use. A sea mirror, a telescope-like thing. This kind of thing has a miraculous effect, that is, it can penetrate the fog and make people better understand the situation at sea. Su Ming was a little puzzled. Aren't they traveling merchants from the sea? Should they also be considered voyagers? Feng Damu shook his head. What I suspect is that they are not traveling merchants because their cargo ships have strange draft conditions. Travelers' cargo ships are large and stable, so that they can carry more cargo and withstand storms at sea, and only pursue speed under special circumstances. And this group of people, no, a lot of them are other races, not people. This group of travel merchants, their cargo ships are typical fast ships, and the draft conditions are obviously wrong. It looks like a large cargo ship, but the draft is very shallow. So I suspect that this group of wandering merchants are not wandering merchants at all, but pirates. Feng Damu expressed his doubts and guesses. Pirates. Su Ming was stunned. There are also sea robbers in this world. How strong are they? All are level 10 or above, and many are fully equipped. When we asked, the other party only said that it was to guard against the armed forces of the pirate organization. Su Ming frowned, then walked quickly outside. Feng Damu followed. Then did you remind Huang-san? No, I was in a hurry to report, and I was afraid of disturbing the pirates, so I didn't remind me. Feng Damu shook his head and added, but Steward Huang has a lot of knowledge, so he should have seen the problem. When I came, he was dragging other traveling merchants to discuss trade matters, but he was only talking about the price without any negotiation. He also knows that bargaining is useless, it's just stalling time. Hopefully so, otherwise it would be bad. Su Ming rushed to gather the soldiers. He also showed anxiety, and while contacting Shu Chu, he quickly asked, by the way, did you bring anyone with you when you went? Bring, with a team of soldiers. Where is the location? They docked at the wharf on the grounds that there was too much cargo, and they also traded at the wharf. At this time, Shu Chu was connected. My lord. Shu Chu, I order you to go to the dock immediately, as fast as possible. Yes, my lord. Shu Chu hung up the communication and ran towards the pier. Yesterday, he wanted to return to Su Ming's side to protect him after the matter of his guarding Tia was transferred to Tushan Yaya. But Su Ming let him go out for a walk on the grounds that there would be no danger on the island. He is not the kind of person who can stay idle. Naturally, he did not stroll around, but exercised outside. He knew the location of the pier, and he ran all the way, rolling up the sky. Su Ming contacted Tushan Yaya again. After all, she and Shu Chu are the two trump cards in the current territory. The strange thing is that Su Ming can't get in touch. No one can be found at this time. Don't bother to look for it. At this time, it suddenly occurred to me that today's summoning was useless. So immediately began to call. Whether to summon. Call. There was another rotation of the screen, but at this time Su Ming didn't have the heart to look at it, and just wanted to skip the plane extraction directly. The plane of the spirit of eating halberds. Grass. Su Ming couldn't help but curse, it was an unfamiliar plane again. Even if he came to a historical dynasty plane, or a plane of immortal cultivation, it would be fine. This halberd-eating spirit, as soon as I heard it, knew that it was not the plane of cultivation. No way. Su Ming can only pray that there is a strong person in this plane. Come on, the strongest. Su Ming said something casually, then clicked summon. Ding. Summoning talent activated. Ding. Congratulations on winning Togetsu Academy's headmaster, Arina Nikiri. A flash of light flashed, and a yellow-haired girl appeared. Without paying too much attention to her beauty, Su Ming threw it away to check. Name. Arina Nikiri. Age. 18 years old. Identity. Gourmet. Level. 1530. Qualification. SSS Seal of the Lord. Occupation. Chef carried by plane. Loyalty. 100 full. Skill. Tongue of God. Introduction. The youngest leader of Tatsuki Academy, with excellent cooking skills. Hint. Summoned by Su Ming, the lord of the farming tribe, from the spiritual plane of eating halberds, eliminating the memory of the past life and retaining the instinct and character. Note. Special talents are not suitable for combat. Su Ming. Immediately speechless. There is a shortage of combat talents now, so you have come to someone who is not suitable for combat. Su Ming didn't take a second glance, and then left directly with Feng Damu. Arina Nikiri was about to salute Su Ming. I have seen the Lord, people. But when he looked up, he saw that Su Ming had gone far, and his eyes were stunned. The full value of loyalty can't help but make her wonder if Su Ming hates her, and she begins to think wildly. Su Ming doesn't have time to spend with her now, so of course she doesn't care. Here, a dog-headed half-orc said to a pig-headed half-orc, "Brother, why do we still have to do this? Didn't we loot 8 places before? The goods are enough." The pig-headed man was full of fangs, drinking wine, and looking into the room in the distance. A half-orc with a jackal head was communicating with Huang San. 0. The pig-headed man said, "Ninth brother, you don't understand. Although you are a military advisor, according to your plan, the previous actions were very successful, but those are not oily. You are only level 10, and you can't feel anything, but we all have the strength of level 20. In the previous places we went, we were all suppressed to level 10, but this time we were only suppressed to level 15. The territories created by this group of outsiders are very strange. The less they suppress, the stronger the territory is, but the richer it is. So, this territory is more oily and watery, and it may be richer than the ones we grabbed before." As he spoke, the pig-headed man seemed to see countless gold and silver treasures waving to him, and he couldn't help laughing. The kobold has some concerns. "Brother, I always feel that this trip is a little unsafe." The pig-headed man slapped the kobold's shoulder with a slap, and said proudly, "Ninth brother, you are too hardy. What kind of power can there be in this new power territory? The 15th level is the sky. Let's wait for the 4th brother and the 5th brother to find out the defense of this territory, and then there is no need to delay time with this old guy." Saying that, the pig-headed man looked at Huang San again. They are indeed pirates of the sea, and they have already plundered multiple forces. Among them are the lord forces from the real world. Huang San is procrastinating, so why aren't they? The kobold sighed helplessly. But suddenly, as if I heard a keyword just now, "Old guy." "Brother, I remember that 2 old guys came together just now. What about the other one?" "Oh, it looks like I went to the toilet." Pighead replied casually. However, I quickly reacted, how could it be possible to go to the toilet for such a long time? And are there latrines around this beach? It was clear that he had escaped for an excuse to tip off the news. "No. Get this old guy under control immediately." The pig-headed man threw away the wine barrel and shouted 9. The other members heard the pig-headed man's voice and acted immediately. Huang San in the room couldn't help sighing when he heard the voice. But there was no trace of panic on his face, because it was useless. He is only level 10, and is not good at fighting. When I came here, I found an abnormality, and after a few exchanges, I realized that something was wrong. Then he kept chatting with the pirates. After seeing Feng Damu leave, there was a hint of happiness in his heart, but fortunately Feng Damu was not an ordinary person. But up to now, Feng Damu has not brought anyone. Although there was a reason that the time was too short, Huang San was also a little disappointed in his heart. Now, he is in danger. This is also because he has grown up, and only brought 2 soldiers with him when he came. At this time, 2 soldiers confronted 10 pirates. The pig-headed man took out his weapon, a huge mace. Kicked the door and entered, shouting, "Old Slick, good plan, actually playing tricks for Lao Su here. Do you really think Lao Su doesn't know the art of war? I've seen a lot of you guys from outside forces, none of them are 2 or 2, they're all rubbish. Today, I will not only rob your wealth, but also the women on this island. Just now I saw a big beauty swaying at the door of the territory over there, that's called a show. Suck." The pig's mouth could not help but flow down. The person he saw was Yu Xuanji. Yu Xuanji heard the news of the travel merchant. She was also a merchant, so of course she was also a little curious. And sometimes their merchants in the territory also trade with the traveling merchants. Because from the hands of traveling merchants, some treasured goods can be found from time to time. However, there are few sales channels for tourists, so the price will always be lower. But the reason she doesn't have the past is because she doesn't want to conflict with Su Ming's territory. If both parties are involved, the traveler will be up for grabs. Of course, it was fortunate that she didn't participate, otherwise her level 30, non-combat type strength would not be enough to see in front of a group of pirates. Huang San didn't know who the pig-headed man was talking about, nor was he interested in knowing. There were 2 soldiers beside him, which gave him some confidence. You should be the leader of the pirates, right? Seeing that only the pig-headed man spoke, Huang San easily judged who was headed by this group of pirates. The pig-headed man was stunned for a moment, then laughed, not surprised that Huang San directly revealed his identity. Are you still curious about this? Are you worried about your life? If you can come to trade with us, I think your status is not low, right? The pig-headed man said, and suddenly waved his hand, almost not speaking to Huang San, because he knew that this kind of old guy could not play with his brain. Take it. The surrounding pirates suddenly swarmed up. Cavity. Hand in hand. The two soldiers shouted angrily, their skills turned on, and they flew the weapons of the two pirates, piercing their heads with one shot. Crit. One-hit kill. Soldiers can enjoy double attribute bonuses in the territory. He also has superb combat experience, and his equipment is not weak. The pirates really couldn't take the two for a while. Move to the window. Standing between the two, Huang San said in a low voice. The two immediately cooperated and moved towards the window. Seeing that two people were damaged at once, the pig-headed man frowned. Those two members had the strength of level 15, yet they were shot for a second. Go away and let me come. The pig-headed man directly swung his mace and attacked one of the soldiers. Black flames erupted all over. Skill. Pig King Fury. Skill. Black Fury. The terrifying force poured out on the soldiers, who were knocked back. When the pig-headed man wanted to continue the attack, another soldier directly swept away the enemy in front of him, and then turned to catch the pig-headed man's attack. But the pig-headed man is obviously also rich in combat experience, and many skills are close by, and two explosive skills are used, and the soldier's blood bar suddenly drops a lot. Ha ha ha. Rejoice. Rejoice. The pig-head laughed wildly. It's been a long time since I met such a strong opponent, and I have been bullying weak chickens before, and I have some doubts about my own strength. Today, the lives of the two of you will be regarded as the luck of Lao Su's looting of this island. Saying that, the pig-headed man directly spun the mace in both hands. Skill. Wild dance. With the laughter of the pig-headed man, the two soldiers retreated. No matter how high their attributes and rich experience are, they can't stand the indiscriminate bombardment of pig-headed skills. What's more, to protect Huang San, it is inevitable to be tied. As long as Huang San is swept away by the pig-headed man's skills, he will not die or be disabled. Soon, the three were forced to a corner. At this moment, screams of killing began to sound outside the house. The pig-headed man was distracted for a while. What's going on outside? Report, Chief, there is a reckless man outside who is slaughtering the brothers can't hold it anymore. An orc burst in from outside and reported loudly. The pig-headed man's eyes widened, and he had an aura of arrogance and arrogance. You all go up together, kill these two people, and keep the one inside, I'm still useful. After he finished speaking, the pig-head rushed outside without looking back. A dozen pirates attacked the two soldiers again. This time, they learned to be smart, and used crowd tactics to attack the wounded parts of the soldiers. The two soldiers strangled hard, but unfortunately their manpower was sometimes exhausted. In the end, a soldier had his wrist broken by an orc and was hacked to death by a slasher from behind. The other was not spared either, being slashed in the ankle by a dwarf, losing his balance and then being shot through the throat. And of the original dozen or so pirates, only 8 were left when they went out. Shu Chu rushed to the pier and opened his mouth to find Butler Huang, but was stopped by the pirates. Shu Chu was also violent, and at the same time had a very keen sense of war. Sensing that the aura of these pirates was not simple, he directly took out his own sledgehammer and rushed towards the pirates with an angry shout. A hammer down, instantly killed 2 pirates. Seeing this, the other pirates attacked directly, and Shu Chu started a one-sided massacre. But it didn't take long for the pirates to see that they were invincible, and suddenly used the siege equipment, that is, the giant weapon on the ship. Huge crossbow arrows roared towards Shu Chu. Shu Chu wanted to dodge to the side, but was stopped. Had to jump back. With this withdrawal, the opportunity to get close to the pirates was lost, and then many long-range weapons attacked Shu Chu overwhelmingly. Which dares to slaughter Lao Su's subordinates? The roar of the pig-headed man sounded. Then the sky-filled weapon suddenly disappeared. The pig-headed man fell from the sky and smashed a big hole 20 meters in front of Shu Chu. Here comes the leader. This reckless man is useless. These two-legged beasts are so hateful, they actually killed so many of our brothers. With the leader here, this reckless man will die. Boss, you want to avenge your brothers. Boss, kill him. Kill him. Kill him. The pirates roared one after another, all of them vowing to kill Shu Chu. Shu Chu's body sank, and he shot directly at the pig-headed man. Without a word of nonsense, he swung the sledgehammer and smashed it directly at the pig-head of the pig-headed man. Passive skills are fully activated, and angry eyes are activated. The pig-headed man was shocked when he saw the power of Shu Chu's attack, and quickly turned on his skills to greet him. Boom! With a roar, the pig-headed man sank half a foot into the ground with his feet and slid back 10 meters abruptly. Cough cough. The pig-headed man bled from the corners of his mouth, and looked at Shu Chu with horror in his eyes. The other pirates widened their eyes one after another, and the sound of gasping for air could be heard incessantly. What? It seemed that he had lost face in front of his hands, and the pig-headed man roared, suddenly bursting with imposing manner. Then, the body began to swell, becoming a full 3 meters high. Skill. Huge. This is the life-saving trump card skill of the pig-headed man wandering around at sea. I want you to die. The roar of the pig-headed man resounded throughout Shuiyu Island. At this time, Su Ming and others arrived. Kill them. Su Ming gave an order, and hundreds of soldiers came to slaughter the pirates with hundreds of savage soldiers. The fourth and fifth among the 27 pirates are the closest and bear the brunt. One rushed down and was directly wiped out. Fourth brother. Fifth brother. When the pig-headed man saw this scene, his anger directly turned into substance, and the blood-red arrogance rose to the sky. Skill. Blood vengeance attributes doubled, intelligence cleared. Then the pig-headed man will kill Su Ming and others. On the way, Shu Chu directly appeared to block. Shu Chu is here. Who dares to be presumptuous? Skill. Crazy battle. Shu Chu waved the sledgehammer, jumped up in one step, and smashed the pig-headed man on the head. The pig-headed man quickly raised his hand to resist. PFF'd. With a hammer blow, a big hole instantly appeared in the pig-headed man's hand. What? The pig-headed man retracted his arm and howled in pain. Shu Chu took advantage of the victory to pursue the attack. The veins in his hands burst out, and he used the sledgehammer to rotate his body to strike violently. Boom! A hammer hit the pig-headed man's head, and the pig-headed man's huge body went backwards, and his face was bloody. The throat whimpered loudly, but the articulation was not clear. Brother, Chief, 5. When the other pirates saw this, their hearts trembled, and they all looked at Shu Chu with fear. Su Ming swept all the way. Soon, a group of pirates were forced outside the house where Huang San and others were just now. 8 pirates took Huang San out of the house. The kobold just now suddenly thought of something and ran over to grab Huang San. First, he made a few openings in Huang San, and then brought him to the front of the battle. Do not move. Don't move. Move any more and I'll kill him. When Su Ming heard the voice and saw Huang San's figure, his eyes lit up. When he came just now, he saw Shu Chu slaughtering. He thought that Huang San had been killed, but he didn't expect to be alive. Stop! Su Ming shouted loudly. The soldiers in the slaughter instantly repulsed the enemy, then stopped and retreated to a safe distance. Shu Chu jumped over when he heard Su Ming's voice. Now that Su Ming's position has been exposed, coupled with the order just now, it is natural to prevent the pirates from gathering fire on Su Ming. So Shu Chu retreated without hesitation, as if to him, killing the pig-headed man was irrelevant. Although he knew that Su Ming was invincible on the island, the habit from his bones could not be changed for a while. Brother, are you all right? The kobold dragged Huang San to the pig-headed man. The pig-headed man's body size decreased sharply, and finally returned to normal. The blood feud just now greatly increased his attributes, but he still couldn't withstand Shu Chu's attack. Moreover, it directly hurt his mind, and at this time he had fallen into stupidity. Don't come here. Let us go, or I'll kill him. The kobold turned to look at Su Ming and others and threatened. You let him go, I promise to let you go. Su Ming's face was cold, and at the same time, he responded loudly. Huang San was his right-hand man. Thinking he was dead just now, he was furious. But now that he found out that he was not dead, he made up his mind to let him go. No, you let us go first. Let your people back. The kobolds are obviously also very cautious. If people are released first, then their end must be death. Su Ming frowned, his brain spinning wildly. Finally, he called Chen Dabbing, gave a few words, and then responded to the kobold. Okay, I'll send people back first, but you must be the last to get on board. Otherwise, I will order the killing now, and it's a big deal to let the people you give to me be buried with you. When the kobold heard the news, he responded before he had time to think. Okay, you let your people retreat first. Su Ming raised his hand, and the other soldiers stepped back. Dozens of people even retreated directly from sight, followed by dozens of feathered eagles. The pirates had been frightened and ran towards the boat as if they were fleeing. After the fight just now, there were only less than 20 left. They were retreating, and both Su Ming and Shu Chu were getting closer. The kobold saw that there were only 2 of them, so he didn't care much. A dice appeared in Su Ming's hand. With the back of the hand behind him, the blessing skill was activated, and with a slight roll, the dice spun, and a big 6 appeared. Skill: Curse of Exchange Blood. PFF'd. The kobold suddenly softened and fell to the ground. Shu Chu was already ready to go. He caught Huang San before he landed, and then quickly retreated. Seeing this, Su Ming breathed a sigh of relief. Master! The pirates shouted again. Suddenly, someone ordered the boat to sail, and at the same time set up siege weapons and attacked Su Ming and Shu Chu directly. Shu Chu, take Lao Huang back to find Bai Ling for treatment. Yes, my lord. Shu Chu left without hesitation, and he obeyed Su Ming's orders unconditionally. Kill. The weapons in the sky appeared again, but this time the target of the blow was Su Ming. Su Ming didn't even look at it, and directly contacted Chen Dabbing and the others. With a cold tone, he said, do it. I want none of them to leave alive. When the sky-filled weapon approached Su Ming, it fell directly to the ground as if under a spell. When the pirates saw this scene, their souls flew out of fear. Fortunately, the ship has been launched, they are still alive, there is hope to escape. But then, a loud eagle croak sounded. Yeah, the pirates followed the reputation. Then, all of them knelt down on the deck with their legs soft, their eyes revealing a deep despair. But Chen Dabbing and the others don't care about these. Su Ming's order is not to leave one, then they will not let half of the creatures go. At the end of the First World War, soldiers cleaned the battlefield. But they didn't know that an hour later, a jackal's head appeared on the sea in the distance. When Su Ming came back, as soon as he entered the territory, he saw Yu Xuanji and a dozen people. The other goblins had already gone to hide, and only the recruited people were waiting for the outcome of the war. What are you doing here? What are you going to do? Su Ming came and waved directly to the crowd. People immediately backed away. In the end, only Su Ming and Yu Xuanji were left. Are you free to watch this too? Su Ming looked at Yu Xuanji and asked, with a strange look in his eyes. After Yu Xuanji stared at Su Ming for a while, a very charming smile appeared on his face. It's not intentional, it's just a gift. I never imagined that in just a week, your territory would be so strong. It seems that it won't be long before you will be able to incorporate the elves, right? The dispute between Su Ming and the elves, Yu Xuanji was in the territory. As long as he inquired, it would be clear. And she is standing from the perspective of a bystander, so she can see it better than anyone else. She has simply understood and analyzed Su Ming's temperament. Because he has no loyalty to Su Ming, Yu Xuanji is more rational than anyone else when he looks at him. Such people are usually harmless to humans and animals and don't care about anything. But once it broke out, no matter what, it would become extremely terrifying. Take the previous invasion of the Black Elf Queen as an example. If it wasn't for Su Ming's weakness, the Black Elf clan would definitely be wiped out. But now maybe things are a little different. Because yesterday Yu Xuanji saw Tush and Yaya and Tia wandering around the island. It is a great signal that Tia can be freed. From Yu Xuanji's point of view, there is a lot of information in it, which may show some kind of will of Su Ming. But in terms of the development potential of Su Ming, it would be difficult to swallow the Black Elves later. That's why Yu Xuanji dared to make such a bold guess. Man, sometimes being too smart isn't a good thing, lady boss, right? Instead of denying it, Su Ming gave a warning. Su Ming knew from the beginning that there was power behind Yu Xuanji. But now, Yu Xuanji actually began to pay attention to the development trend of the territory. This is not good news. What kind of temperament is behind Yu Xuanji Su Ming is still uncertain, but in any case it will not be the good camp. Can a group of interests be expected to be kind? Then, if Yu Xuanji thought about the territory, told the people behind him about the development, or notified other ambitious forces, it would be a disaster for the farming tribe. All of Su Ming's foundations are good, but the hard power of the territory is still too weak. Now even a group of pirates dare to offend, not to mention those forces that have developed for dozens or hundreds of years. In the negotiation with the Black Elves, without Tia as a hostage, without the high-level deterrence of Shu Chu, Su Ming would not dare to be so strong. But strength is also pretended to be in order to obtain more benefits. If it is really strong enough, do you still need to install it? So Su Ming's thinking has changed now. He needs to get stronger, and he wants to get stronger quickly. But he lacks time, the time for him to develop secretly. As long as the territory level reaches level 30, then he has the confidence to protect himself. Therefore, now that he saw Yu Xuanji, he planned to deal with this uncertain factor. When Yu Xuanji heard Su Ming's words, he first smiled, thinking that Su Ming was praising himself after being exposed by himself. But soon, she reacted again and looked at Su Ming angrily. Lord, you shouldn't be suspicious of everyone because of this trivial matter. Indeed, as Su Ming said, Yu Xuanji is very smart, very smart. Just because the tone of Su Ming's words was wrong, he made a judgment. If it was someone else, then I naturally wouldn't be suspicious. Su Ming's words changed. But you are not from the territory, you have no loyalty to the territory, how can I trust you? There is another sentence that Su Ming didn't say, that is, Yu Xuanji has an information transmission channel that he doesn't know, so he doesn't believe it. But you can't say this, otherwise you will be suspected of tearing your face. Yu Xuanji's face turned cold. Since Su Ming's words have already been said, she naturally no longer needs to smile at each other. Then what are you going to do with me? It's serious to deal with this kind of argument. I don't see the boss in your store. I plan to arrange a person to help you. I hope the boss won't refuse. Yu Xuanji sneered, thinking to himself, doing chores. Helping, isn't it just monitoring? I saw Su Ming added. Also, I hope that in the future, the scope of activities of the proprietress will only be in the store. If there is any need, she can arrange for someone to do it for you. Yu Xuanji was in a hurry and pointed at Su Ming angrily. Surveillance is not enough, and house arrest is required. Just because a pirate invaded to become so cautious. Do you want to be so cowardly? Su Ming gently pressed Yu Xuanji's finger and said with a smile, but please rest assured, Madam Boss, it won't be too long, at most 10 days and a half months. Humph. Yu Xuanji dismissed Su Ming's good behavior and snorted coldly. Su Ming didn't say anything more, and then passed by with Yu Xuanji. After walking a few steps, Yu Xuanji suddenly stopped Su Ming. Then how can the Lord trust me? Su Ming turned around, a little surprised. Yu Xuanji still asks this question at this time. Shouldn't he be completely disappointed with himself and then hate the territory? After thinking about it, Su Ming joked, why don't you become my person and join the farming tribe? In an instant, Yu Xuanji's eyes widened. At this moment, Yu Xuanji didn't understand what Su Ming thought he was thinking, but was thinking crookedly. To be his, lover, is he interested in himself? Is he staring at him? Are your guesses just now false? His real purpose is himself. Yu Xuanji had mixed feelings for a while. Is this a confession? Having been a businessman stationed in the territory for so many years, no lord has dared to confess to him. How to respond? Yes or no? Promise, will I betray the Chamber of Commerce in the future? But if you refuse, can you still stay in this territory in the future? After thinking about it, Yu Xuanji was caught in a dilemma. Seeing this, Su Ming looked puzzled. Is it difficult to answer such an easy question? Wouldn't it be all right to just refuse? He and Ben never had the idea of successfully recruiting Yu Xuanji because of her identity. She is a member of Qian Hao in the business forces, and will inevitably be controlled by the forces. Moreover, the power of the Chamber of Commerce is definitely not something that he can compare with now. Unless Yu Xuanji is stupid, he will definitely not agree. But when Su Ming thought about this, he was thinking rationally. And Yu Xuanji has already thought about it now, so how can he remain rational again? Seeing that Su Ming was still asking, Yu Xuanji immediately said angrily, "How can you come up with an answer to this kind of question at once? We have only known each other for a long time, and we are not familiar with each other, so you can't give me time to think about it more." Su Ming. Su Ming's face was full of question marks. What is this all about? Hey, are you, lift? Su Ming wanted to say, "Are you thinking too much," but was interrupted by Yu Xuanji. "Don't ask any more, I don't want to answer now." Saying that, Yu Xuanji trotted past Su Ming and quickly returned to the store. Before closing the door, he said to Su Ming, "You are so shameless. The first second is really aimed at others, the next second is the confession. This behavior is really shameless." Su Ming directly petrochemical. Seeing Yu Zhan shut the door, Su Ming helplessly shook his head. Guessing that Yu Xuanji should be thinking too much, I ignored it and walked towards the Lord's mansion. On the way, the goblins stuck their heads out to check the situation. After all, it was a war. Although it came urgently and ended quickly, it still worried them. But when I saw Su Ming, I was all relieved. Su Ming returned to the Lord's mansion, but suddenly saw several women waiting for him at the door. Ku Wanru took Zaire to the left of the gate, and Bai Ling stood to the right. There was also a person standing in the middle, Irina Nakiri. Ku Wanru and Bai Ling are worried about Su Ming, while Nakiri Irina is unwilling to enter the Lord's mansion because she has not formally greeted Su Ming. And she also heard the news just now that Su Ming was in a hurry to go to war, so she didn't have time to talk to herself. It's not because I hate myself that I'm deliberately left out. After knowing this, her mood improved. Moreover, she is confident that she will be impressed by Su Ming after seeing her cooking skills. So wait here, there is also this layer of thinking. When Su Ming approached, Ku Wanru didn't move, but it was obvious that she was relieved. Bai Ling didn't move, she wanted to hug Su Ming to observe carefully, and drop a treatment by the way. But Ku Wanru was on the side, she couldn't, she had to restrain herself, otherwise she would be suspected of competing for favor. But this embarrassing situation didn't last long. Ku Wanru took Zaire and turned around and entered the Lord's mansion without saying a word to Su Ming. Su Ming smiled at each other the whole time, but didn't hold back. After seeing Ku Wanru leaving, Bai Ling ran over and threw herself into Su Ming's arms. This is the newly married Yunur, and Bai Ling also wants to stick to Su Ming very much. Su Ming hugged her back and patted her back with a smile. "Okay, I'm fine, don't use your healing skills. By the way, how is the old Huang? Butler Huang is all right, I gave him treatment when he brought him just now, and he will recover soon." Bai Ling wanted to stay in Su Ming's arms all the time. But considering that Su Ming might have something to deal with in a while, he didn't stay long. Su Ming rubbed Bai Ling's head dotingly, and then looked at Nakiri Irina, who was still waiting. "You are the cook you called just now. Sorry, I was in a hurry and couldn't explain the situation to you. You don't need to introduce too much about your identity. I can know directly here. Since we are all a family, then go in, it's not good to stand outside." Nakiri Irina hesitated. When I heard Su Ming address her, there was a strong desire in my heart to explain. "I'm not a cook, I'm a chef, a gourmet." But when she heard Su Ming apologize and admit that she is a family, she felt her heart melt in an instant. A soft sounded. The look in Su Ming's eyes changed, and it was obvious that loyalty had begun to deteriorate. It's a pity that Su Ming didn't notice this and went to the Lord's mansion first. He does have something to deal with, that is Tu Shan Yaya. When he wanted to contact her just now, Tu Shan Yaya didn't connect directly. This made Su Ming very curious about what Tu Shan Yaya was doing, but also extremely angry. What leader wants to have disobedient people under him? What if this person is stronger? If it cannot be used, it is no different from waste. First, he went to see Huang San's situation, and then Su Ming took Shu Chu to the outside of the house where Tia was imprisoned. When Sophie and the other elves saw Su Ming, their eyes were full of shock and fear. What happened on the beach just now? After they first heard the movement, they all lifted off to check. Then I saw the scene where Su Ming directly ignored the weapons in the sky. That not only frightened the pirates, but also frightened Sophie and the others. What terrifying strength does it have to be to do that? Obviously they all regarded that as Su Ming's hard power. But when he saw that Su Ming was about to enter the house, he immediately reached out to stop him. He lowered his head and said, "Sir, this is the Queen's residence, please respect yourself." "What? There are places on this island that my lord can't go to." Su Ming glanced coldly at the elves, and the other elves bowed their heads. "Did I say to cede this room to your queen? Still want to come here for privileges? Think about your identity." Saying that, Su Ming lifted Sophie's blocking hand and was about to push the door. TL. Sophie's voice sank, but before the words were finished, Su Ming suddenly turned his head to look at Sophie, and murderous intent appeared. At that moment, Sophie suddenly felt a chill in her neck and her heart slowed for a while. Shu Chu in the back also exploded with momentum and directly suppressed it. Just when the conflict was about to arouse, Tia's voice suddenly came from the room. "Fei Fei, let the Lord come in." Hearing the sound, Sophie breathed a sigh of relief and stepped aside to stop blocking. Shu Chu, who was behind him, also lost his momentum. Su Ming sneered and ignored it. Pushing the door into the house, he suddenly frowned. In addition to the scent I smelled before, there were several other scents mixed in. One is the fragrance of Tu Shan Yaya's body, and the other, Su Ming feels strange, because Su Ming himself can't believe it. It was actually the faint scent that Bai Ling smelled this morning. Like the kind that comes out after estrus. He looked at the two inhuman beings sitting at the table in surprise. A elf, a fox demon. Seeing Tia lowered her head, her ears were still flushed. On the other hand, Tu Shan Yaya looked very magnanimous, looking directly at Su Ming. The spring in her eyes had faded to the point of disappearing. Is Su Ming still wondering at this time? No wonder Tushan Yaya chose to stand up for Tia before, and even directly contradicted herself. It turned out to be love at first sight, and also engaged in a lily game. Pretty cool, huh? Su Ming had a smile on his face, but his eyes were already piercingly cold. I didn't expect that a queen would fall like this. Tu Shan Yaya, you are also a good way. Tu Shan Yaya raised his brows, looked at Su Ming and said displeased Lord, don't arrange it at will, this is about Tia's reputation. Hehe, what, are you still not happy? Feeling distressed? Su Ming mocked. Tu Shan Yaya didn't answer, and asked, I don't know why your lord came to see us. Just now, in order to prevent other people from disturbing her, she arranged a soundproof magic circle around the room so that she could hear the outside world completely. Yes, she is proficient in the formation technique, but she can't move or dare not move the forbidden magic formation arranged in the house. Because it concerns the interests of the territory, she can't do it. You don't know what's going on outside? Su Ming asked suddenly. Tu Shan Yaya frowned suddenly, feeling bad in her heart. Could it be that what happened just now? But isn't there only one big power around Shuiyu Island? Apart from matters related to the entire territory, what else could Su Ming have for herself? And so coincidentally, ha 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 ha, you don't know what's going on outside. Su Ming burst out laughing like crazy. Then he turned his face directly, looked at Tu Shan Yaya and said angrily, kneel down. Bang! Tu Shan Yaya was about to kneel subconsciously, but she hit the table with a palm and held it abruptly, unwilling to kneel. I ask you to kneel down. Su Ming was merciless, and ordered again coldly. Tu Shan Yaya was extremely reluctant in her heart. At this moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly vented onto Tu Shan Yaya's shoulders. Boom! With a loud noise, the floor of the room cracked. Cracked wooden table. Tu Shan Yaya fell to the ground in humiliation. I said, you can't refuse my order, why don't you believe it? Instead, try again and again. Su Ming looked down at Tushan Yaya condescendingly. Tia, who was on the side, was directly frightened. The moment she saw Tu Shan Yaya kneeling on the ground, something seemed to collapse in her heart. And for some unknown reason, at this time, she didn't dare to resist Su Ming in the slightest, mentally. Kneel down with Tushan Yaya, then help please. Lord, Yaya is all because of me, she is bewitched by me, and all her mistakes are because of me. If you want to punish me, punish me. 5. Tia. Tu Shan Yaya didn't want to look up at Su Ming, and was also afraid to meet Tia's gaze. At this moment, she is like a loser who directly declares failure without any chance to resist. And in front of Tia, if the humiliation and anger in her heart were not suppressed by the rules, it would be enough to destroy the entire Shueyu Island. Do you think that if I need you to help me limit the Black Elves, I won't dare to do anything to you? Su Ming's eyes narrowed slightly, and a dangerous atmosphere loomed in them. Punishing Tushan Yaya is an internal matter of the territory. What are you, an outside force, participating in? No. No. When Tia heard Su Ming's voice, she was suddenly a little scared. He completely forgot that he was also a level 50 high-level magician. Although he lost his strength for a while, his majesty and arrogance also disappeared. Then you know what's wrong with her. Su Ming did not ask Tushan Yaya, but asked Tia. Me. Tia hesitated to answer, saying it is a mistake, and falling in love with yourself is definitely not. Because Tia knows that Su Ming is not interested in herself, and also knows that Tushan Yaya is not interested in Su Ming either. So there is no emotional entanglement between the three at all. Since it is not such a thing, it can only be a matter of power. Kodia doesn't even care about her own Black Elves, so why would she pay attention to farming tribes? And she has been with Tushan Yaya for the past 2 days, so she doesn't know what happened at all. Seeing that Tia couldn't speak, Su Ming turned to look at Tushan Yaya. She doesn't know, tell me. Tushan Yaya stretched out her hand to appease the uneasy Tia, looked up at Su Ming and said, because I have no respect for you. Tushan Yaya was also staying in this room just now, and she actually didn't know why Su Ming suddenly got angry. Ah, hee, what's the use of my ah? Su Ming laughed when he heard the answer, and said, if I really cared about those vain things, it wouldn't be you who called me in the first place. I acted casually, in order to make life easier for other members of the territory, don't worry about this or that. Do you think I'm acting? I'm buying people's hearts. Tushan Yaya did not answer. When she first saw Su Ming so easygoing, she really thought so. But after looking at Su Ming's temperament, I realized that this person really doesn't have so many rules. When Su Ming saw Tushan Yaya's expression, he knew it. So that's the case, it seems that you are still clear, so this became the confidence that you dared to ask me before. I didn't expect you to be very observant. Then did you guess that I would have the side I am now? Tushan Yaya suddenly raised her head and looked at Su Ming with a hint of panic in her eyes. He obviously didn't speak, and he could make such a judgment just by the change in his eyes. You don't want to obey my orders, you can say it directly. Su Ming's tone suddenly became extremely gentle, I definitely won't force it. Although I won't let you leave the territory, I can still give you a death. 5. Tushan Yaya and Tia shivered together. With such a gentle tone and such cold words, what kind of hard-hearted does this person have? Although my level is only 10th, I can kill you without using an order, do you believe it? With that said, a dice appeared in Su Ming's hand. When Tia saw the dice, her pupils instantly widened. Suddenly kowtowed and prayed. Lord, please don't do this, don't kill Yaya, it's all my fault, you want to kill me. Tushan Yaya was also shocked, and she didn't know why Tia had such a big reaction. Looking at the dice in Su Ming's hand, he was somewhat disapproving. Shut up. This is a matter within my territory, outsiders don't interrupt. Su Ming shouted angrily. Tia fell silent for a moment. She originally thought that her intercession would reduce Su Ming's punishment on Tushan Yaya by 1 point, but when she heard this, she suddenly understood. Not only will his pleas not alleviate the punishment, it will make Su Ming even more angry. Tia is not a member of the territory, you shouldn't do this to her. Tushan Yaya looked at Su Ming and said angrily. You still care about her. Aren't you worried about yourself? It seems that you still think what I said just now is to scare you. Hee, good. I hope you can save your own life. Su Ming laughed angrily and threw the dice. Blessed, 4 o'clock. As soon as the voice fell, a 4 o'clock turned up. Skill. Curse of Exchange Blood. Puff. Tushan Yaya's throat suddenly became sweet, and she spit out a large mouthful of blood. His breath was sluggish, and then he looked at Su Ming with a look of horror. At this moment, she forgot her anger. Yaya. Seeing this, Tia immediately supported Tushan Yaya. You are very lucky, you have the ability to reduce the curse, and you saved your own life. Su Ming was neither happy nor disappointed, and his face was surprisingly calm. Put away the dice. Remember when you first saw me, you said something, I'm weak like a bug. What about now? I was almost killed by a bug, what's the experience? Are you unwilling in your heart, or do you want to bow your head unexpectedly? Tu Shan Yaya lowered her head again, her body was weak for most of the reason, and she didn't want to meet Su Ming's eyes again. Before, she did think that Su Ming was too weak to command herself. But because of the constraints of the rules, she had to accept her fate. So at the beginning, I made a rant. But now, Su Ming has proved with facts that he has the ability to kill himself in seconds. And this ability is also close to the rules. I don't care about your disrespect to me, and I don't care if you stand up for this elf. But as a member of the territory, where are you when the territory needs you? Have you forgotten who you are? You are a member of the fighting force. When your territory is invaded, you don't come out. Do you want those farmers and miners to come? Hee, the soldiers are fighting outside, but you two are enjoying themselves here. It's really enviable. Su Ming was talking, and suddenly Yin and Yang said something strange. Tia and Tu Shan Yaya did not dare to refute. Seemingly scolding enough, Su Ming let out a sigh of relief. Looking at Tushan Yaya and said, since you don't want to obey my orders and don't want to protect the territory, then you can go outside the territory. Go outside to collect resources, come back once a week, and spend no more than an hour in the territory. If you bring back less than 10 million resources a week, don't come back here. *0. Since Tu Shan Yaya had escaped the death penalty, Su Ming no longer insisted. His original plan was to get rid of it directly, because Tu Shan Yaya's strength is very strong, and it is likely to drive other territorial members to have different ideas. At this time, he also regretted it a little. Before, because of other factors, he forgot to consider the stability of the territory. Caused a Tushan Yaya to be summoned. It seems that in the future, when summoning, the factor of whether to listen or not will have to be considered. Tia heard that Su Ming would punish Tushan Yaya, and she was still exiled. Immediately, unwillingness arose in my heart, and I raised my head to refute. But when he met Su Ming's unquestionable eyes, he couldn't help swallowing what he wanted to say. At this moment, Tu Shan Yaya was also displeased, and looked at Tia reluctantly. He also did not refute Su Ming's order, and asked, if I have collected 10 million worth of resources in advance within a week, can I come back early and stay for a while? This was obviously for Tia. Because during this time, Tia must have been imprisoned on this Shuiyu island. If she wants to meet Tia, she can only let Su Ming let go. But will Su Ming listen to Tu Shan Yaya's opinion now? Obviously not. The purpose of this decision is not to make money, but to punish. Want me to repeat it a second time? Su Ming did not answer the question. Tu Shan Yaya sighed and replied, I understand, I will obey. I don't want to see you in the territory tomorrow. Finally, Su Ming didn't stop, he turned around and left. From start to finish, he didn't move an inch. Shu Chu followed him expressionlessly. Without Shu Chu's deterrence, Sophie and the others had a chance to enter the house. Seeing Tia and Tu Shan Yaya fell to the ground, they were shocked and hurriedly stepped forward to help. Then several elves took out the healing medicine and fed Tushan Yaya. One night, this was Su Ming's last kindness to Tu Shan Yaya. Su Ming was walking on the road, Shu Chu followed silently. Coming to a corner, Su Ming suddenly stopped and sighed. Without turning his head, he looked at the plants outside the corridor and asked aloud, Shu Chu, do you think I'm too casual too? Back to the Lord is the Lord no matter what, you are a gift to the servants if you are casual, and it is their fault if the servants are disrespectful. Shu Chu responded angrily, fair enough, no comments, no substantive suggestions. But it is comfortable to listen to. Su Ming smiled. You seem simple and honest, but in fact you have a delicate mind. You don't have to please me in the future, what to say and what to say, sometimes I don't just want to hear good things. For you, I can rest assured to put my life in your hands, do you remember? Yes, my lord, in this life, Shu Chu will surely go through fire and water for the Lord. Shu Chu suddenly knelt down on one knee. Seeing this, Su Ming also felt amused, but at the same time felt tired. After all, he is still only an 18-year-old boy. If he can, he really doesn't think about these things. But there is no way. He came to this world, encountered a lot of things, and the power of his subordinates is getting stronger and stronger. Some things have begun to become impossible to choose. And to solve the matter of playing Tushin Yaya, I can't help but think of Ku Wanru. And when he thought about Ku Wanru, he couldn't help but have a headache. Ku Wanru is not comparable to Tushan Yaya, and she has to take her time, which is really nerve-wracking. The punishment of Tushan Yaya didn't cause any waves, because few people knew her well. And with her arrogant temperament, she doesn't bother to make friends with others. Su Ming then went to start dealing with territorial affairs. Huang San was injured and is still recovering. Naturally, someone has to deal with these matters. Although Su Ming was not as knowledgeable as Huang Sangwang, and his arrangements were not as meticulous as Huang San, fortunately, the people under him were not ordinary and could always offer opinions. Su Ming's arrangement according to these can be regarded as a proper handling. Moreover, it is necessary to organize and collect the spoils, and to appease the goblin members of the territory. Soon another day passed. When it came time to eat, there were 2 less people at the table this time. However, everyone did not have the slightest emotion, because their attention went to a table of food. Wow, Arena, you are amazing. Did you do all this alone? Bai Ling looked at the dishes on the table with stars in his eyes. Although she can cook, and she thinks her skills are not bad, but compared with the current dishes, she has no confidence at all. The so-called color and flavor are complete, but also nothing more than this. No, Sister Zaire also helped. Arena waved her hand and was a little embarrassed by what she said. Then he looked at Su Ming expectantly, as if waiting for Su Ming's evaluation. And Zaire was also full of pride, as if to say that the meal also had her share of credit. Too bad no one is looking at her. Huang San and Feng Damu chatted while eating, commented from time to time, and then kept praising them. Shu Chu didn't speak, but his eating posture was a bit more crazy than before. He seems to be proving the craftsmanship of cooking people with practical actions. Of course, Su Ming was full of praise, and did not stingy praise Nakiri Arena. Nakiri Arena's face suddenly seemed to bloom like 2 flowers, colorful and beautiful. At this time, Bai Ling suddenly felt a familiar charm in Nakiri Arena's eyes, first surprised, and then an inexplicable smile appeared on his face. She is not someone who crosses rivers and demolishes bridges, and is even willing to make a temporary cameo as a matchmaker. At the same time, an idea arises in my heart. If the adults take Arena away, is it not good for Miss Ku Wanru to just blame me? At that time, it should be the fault of the adults, right? But the adults are so powerful, and they are still Miss Ku Wanru's lover, so they should be fine. So, it's hard work for you, my lord. Thinking about it, Bai Ling looked at Su Ming subconsciously. Su Ming saw it, but didn't think much about it, so he put a piece of meat in the bowl for Bai Ling. Thank you, sir. Bai Ling blushed, temporarily suppressing the evil thoughts in his heart. After eating, Su Ming came out of Ku Wanru's house again with a basket. Knocked on the door. Soon, Ku Wanru came over to open the door, and when she saw Su Ming, she wanted to close it. But this time, Su Ming didn't back down anymore, he just reached out and closed the door. It's time to eat. A big smile appeared on Su Ming's face. It's said that you don't hit the smiling face when you reach out, but that's true in most cases. Ku Wanru's action of closing the door was light, but when Su Ming stopped her, she didn't insist. But looking at Su Ming's face, he couldn't help but complain. You are so thick-skinned, why didn't you find out before? After the shock of that incident in the morning, Ku Wanru didn't know why, but her mind began to change a lot. I also thought about a lot of things in the room, about the past, about the future, but all have one thing in common, that is, they are all about Su Ming. In the end, she figured out one thing, that is, if she wants to stay by Su Ming's side, some of the previous ideas have to be changed. She couldn't do anything to kill Bai Ling and then have Su Ming by herself again, and she never thought of forcing Su Ming to choose between the two. Because she knew that Su Ming was uncomfortable doing this, and when Su Ming was uncomfortable, she herself was not feeling well, and in the end it was herself who suffered. When she was picking up the basket in the morning, when she saw Su Ming's figure, her heart was exhausted. After hearing the movement again, She went out to know that Su-ming was going to fight. At that time, her heart suddenly went up and down. If it wasn't for Zaire pulling her hard, maybe Su-ming would have seen Ku Wanru on the beach. Seeing Su-ming again later, her inner joy has surpassed any emotion. Su-ming was almost forgiven at that time. And now, I didn't go to eat, I just wanted to see how much space I had in Su-ming's heart. Su-ming didn't let her down either, and licked her face anyway. As soon as Su-ming entered the door, he began to look around. This was the first time he entered Ku Wanru's room. Ku Wanru turned back to see Su-ming's actions, and couldn't help blushing. He said in a flat tone, "There is something to look at, and there is no arrangement." Yes, it's not good looking, it's not good looking, it's not Wanru, you're good looking, I'll ask someone to rearrange it in a while. When Su-ming heard Ku Wanru's voice, he suddenly recovered. When she heard Su-ming believed it, Ku Wanru hurriedly stopped her. "Hey! Don't bother, or you won't know where to sleep tonight." "Well, listen to you, if you don't want to do it, you won't do it." Su-ming looked flattering. Ku Wanru looked at it blankly, and couldn't help but laugh, but turned her head quickly. "You are so thick-skinned." This is the second time Ku Wanru has said that Su-ming is thick-skinned. As thick as you can, as long as you can get your forgiveness, it's fine to have no face. Real forehead. Su-ming was at a loss for words, looked at Ku Wanru's expression, and smiled bitterly. "I am the Lord, how can I really be shameless? I knew you were just kidding me. Well, how about this, if I'm shameless, what are you going to tell me to do? Let me talk about it first, and then I'll decide if I'm shameless, okay?" After finally seeing the attitude eased, Su-ming didn't want to make Ku Wanru unhappy again. "Is that what you said?" "I said, quote. She said it seriously, but Ku Wanru pondered for a long time, but in the end she still didn't think of anything humiliating for Su-ming to do. "I didn't think about it, can I talk about it next time?" "Okay, let's talk about it next time, eat now, and think slowly after eating." Su-ming took out the food box in the basket, opened the food box, and the aroma of vegetables came directly to his face. Ku Wanru has a big appetite. He picked up the chopsticks, but suddenly stopped, looked at Su-ming and said, "How do you plan to arrange for me and Bai Ling in the future?" How else can we arrange it? Of course, it will be treated equally." Su-ming was stunned for a moment and replied subconsciously. Ku Wanru shook her head, seemingly dissatisfied with this statement. "You have no sincerity to apologize." Forehead. Su-ming didn't know how to answer for a while. "Insincere, is it because you didn't bring a gift?" But he didn't expect Ku Wanru to forgive herself so quickly. He thought it would take at least 3 days, so he hadn't started preparing gifts yet. Unexpectedly, it has only been 1 day, and Ku Wanru has a tendency to forgive herself. While this made him happy, it also made him feel more guilty, feeling sorry for Ku Wanru. Originally, they had planned to be single-minded with each other, but in the blink of an eye, they had another woman. Comparing heart to heart, Su-ming couldn't accept it himself. So now he is extremely grateful to Ku Wanru's generosity. Seeing that Su-ming did not respond, Ku Wanru glanced at him resentfully. It seems to be talking to himself, and it seems to remind, "I want to be the main house." What? Su-ming was so clear that he could no longer capture this information clearly, and suddenly looked surprised. "Wanru, can you repeat what you just said?" Ku Wanru blushed and ignored Su-ming. She knew that Su-ming must have heard clearly. "Start eating on your own." Putting a bite of the dish into his mouth, he suddenly exclaimed, "Who made this dish? Has Zaire and Bai Ling's cooking skills improved so quickly?" "Oh, it's made by the cook I recruited today. How does it taste like?" Ku Wanru nodded affirmatively. Thinking of the figure standing outside the Lord's mansion, he suddenly turned to look at Su-ming. "You don't think about this cook, do you?" 5. "How can I? Am I that kind of person? Wanru, how can you think of me like this?" "Oh, I think the cook is pretty. It's none of my business if she's pretty, and she's not as pretty as you." Su-ming flatly denied it. Ku Wanru was overjoyed by Su-ming's last sentence, and hummed softly, "You are slick." 5. What Su-ming said is right, Nakiri Arena is really not as soft as Ku Wan except for her figure. And he really has no idea about others, but if others have ideas about him Su-ming, then he doesn't know. Tushin Yaya was exiled, and the happiest person was Yura, that is, Fra. Yura spent the past 2 days in helplessness and anxiety. Because Tia has Tush and Yaya by her side, she has no way to start. Not to mention the layout. But she was afraid of long night dreams. The longer it drags on, the easier her identity will be exposed, and the more powerful people will appear in Su Ming's territory. Every day a new character appears, which worries her. If there are more than 5 characters above level 60 in Su Ming's territory, the Black Elves will never have the same opportunity to talk. At that time, she wanted to let the Black Elves join Su Ming's power, and her plan to send charcoal in the snow was in vain. It has to be said that her eyes are very vicious, coupled with her ability to predict when she is not working, she has already recognized Su Ming's potential. She firmly believes that as long as Tia becomes Su Ming's woman, everything will be easy. As the first race to take refuge in, the Black Elves will definitely benefit greatly. So in the past 2 days, seeing Tia and Tush and Yaya getting together, she was very worried. During this period, I couldn't help but remind Tia as a priest, asking her to know how to love herself. Because she didn't know whether Su Ming would care about the kind of thing between Tia and Tu Shanya, she reminded Tia again and again. I don't know if Tia has listened to her words. But if I want to come, I will always listen to it. After all, the identity of the priest Frau is there, and she is also deeply respected by Tia. In the evening, Yura also persuaded Tia not to disturb her on the grounds that Tush and Yaya could concentrate on recovering from her injury. Tia originally planned to give herself to Tu Shan Yaya tonight, so as not to leave any regrets. But being woken up by Yura's reminder, he suddenly reacted. Tu Shan Yaya is going to go out tomorrow. The most important thing to do at this time is to adjust the state, it is really inconvenient to disturb. So she just quietly guarded Tush and Yaya all night. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Tush and Yaya woke up from meditation and sighed when she saw Tia sleeping beside her. Gently put Tia on the bed and kissed her forehead. Tia murmured in her dream, but did not wake up. Thinking of what Su Ming said before, Tu Shan Yaya didn't stay, just went out and left. Yura, who was on the night watch, saw Tush and Yaya leave with her own eyes, and a smile appeared on her face. It's all right now, the obstacles are gone, you can act tonight. Saying so, Yura entered the house. After closing the door, he began to draw a magic circle at the door. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.